Okay, we've got another stream going today, and yeah, let's crack on. This is shirt 2 of 2 actually. So I ordered 2 for myself, one with the logo, one without, just in case it didn't come out quite well, and just because it's nice to have a second one. As usual, looking to do some debates today and explain to people why extreme suffering is unacceptable. Are you for real, or is this a bit? It's for real, right? So, most people have the incorrect understanding right now, like yourself, that suffering in the world is acceptable, that it's not a problem, it's just part of the world. But that's wrong. So this incredibly negative thing, this extremely unfair, cruel, extreme suffering, it's not just part of the world, right? Essentially, that's the way a predator would see it, right? That, oh yeah, the screaming and suffering of my victim or anybody else, that's just the way the world is. So that's kind of a predator mentality where you say that suffering in the world is just a part of it, right? It's like a child abuser saying, yeah, child abuse, that's just a part of the world. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so I didn't want to debate. I just wanted to show my feet, and I actually agree with you.
Okay, well, 10 toes for extinction. Thank you for the support. Let's carry on. Yeah, anybody wanting to join the queue, have a debate, feel free to come up and we'll get you on. And tell you what, let's mirror our camera so you can actually see the message properly. There we go. You were silenced. Yes, you were very silently creeping. All right, let's see if we have any more questions. How do you plan total extinction? With activism, so just by getting people together who are going to carry it out. So the movement started 4 years ago, I joined 1 year ago, and there's people from all over the world joining and agreeing to help make total extinction possible. Now, this sounds like the worst thing possible for people that love life. And yeah, so essentially it's taking away the happiness from the small minority so that the sufferers don't have to suffer anymore. So, we live in a very unfair world where people are begging for death, animals are being tortured. And while, to make it fair and to have a fair world, you have to have no extreme suffering, right? That's the priority in order for things to be fair. But funnily enough, people are now saying that all of the extreme suffering is fair and that it would be unfair to stop all of the extreme suffering, right? That the victims, that it would be unfair basically on the happy people to stop their happiness in order to help the victims. So they've turned the concept of fairness into the opposite of what it's meant to be, right? Fairness is about nobody having to suffer, equality, trying to make sure everyone is okay, right? So a billionaire would say that, to tax my billions of dollars, that's unfair, right? Meanwhile, somebody is starving to death from poverty right next to him. And so that's the same thing that we have with people saying that it would be unfair to do total extinction because it would take away from the happy ones, right? So that's just completely insane. These people have no idea what fairness actually means, right? So, they would say that, they're sat there with champagne and somebody next to them is being tortured. They would say, yeah, this is fair. If you stop their torture by taking away my happiness, that would be unfair. So the idea of a world with no suffering, no torture, that's what most people think would be unfair. So that's completely insane. People have basically lost the concept of what fairness is, right? And they actually think that an unfair world is a better one. Hello, how you doing?
So I have a question.
Okay.
Do you plan on mass killings for extinction, or it's gonna be voluntarily?
No, it won't be voluntary.
So
It'll be
there's gonna be
normal.
mass killings, mass shootings.
Well, We don't know exactly how it's going to go down now, right? It could be in the future, so you can't say exactly how it's going to go down. But
Okay.
yeah, basically, we'd be
Okay.
open to that if necessary.
Okay, thank you. Oh wait, is your ideology connected to accelerationism?
No.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Yeah, there's some similarities in that we're calling for extinction, right? Accelerationism, it's a very confused ideology. It doesn't actually make any sense. It's basically just memes. So extinctionism is not about memes. It's about responsibly ending suffering. Hello, Tracy. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Um, Personally, I think that you can't have in a world where no one suffers. That's
Why?
not real. That's not realistic
Why?
because there will always be someone who's hungry. There will always
But
be
not if
animals,
there's extinction, though. Then there wouldn't be anybody who's suffering.
right? But then we would be stuck in nothingness, and there
Who
will
who would be stuck in nothingness, right? There are lots of non-existent beings right now who, never got born. Are they stuck in nothingness, begging for existence?
they might be. I
Really?
mean, that
Right. So you think we should base our decisions on, well, yeah, there might be ghosts. You think that's a responsible way to make decisions about safety and responsibility?
well, do you believe that we are spiritual beings having a human
No.
experience?
No.
Okay, so
Our movement is atheists.
Okay, so that's the reason why you wouldn't understand.
Yeah,
Because
well, it's more that you wouldn't understand how the world actually works, right? So, religion, ghosts, spirituality, these are all things for people who don't understand how the world works and have just made up some, fairy tales to explain it, basically. In the same way that, like, a caveman would say, wow, look at the sun going across the sky. It must be God, right? That's the same thing as saying, oh, well, we can't end torture and suffering because it might cause suffering. Completely insane. Okay, moving on. We have more people coming up next. Hello.
Hello, James. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I was wondering about what kind of philosophy you follow. Is this movement about utilitarianism?
No, so it's not a utilitarian movement. It's not a philosophy. The ideology is called extinctionism.
Yeah, but if I was to ask you about the trolley problem, would that be the case of you choosing one person in this case, or is that irrelevant?
What do you mean?
I mean, as if this pro-extinction movement, they would rather sacrifice one person in case of trolley problem than total extinction. I don't totally know. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
That
No
was
worries.
really
I'm
close.
not really following, but yeah. So I mean, we have to have total extinction to end all suffering. People have it upside down right now, where they feel like life existing is a good thing, even though that's completely illogical, completely insane, right? Only an animal could really think that life and all of the suffering it's causing is a good thing. Hello, Zarko. How you doing?
I've got a question. What is your lower bound on suffering? Because you speak about total extinction. The thing is, you need someone to carry out the extinction. And I
Yeah.
wrote to you that that means that someone is alive and conscious and has the ability to suffer. But if we achieve total extinction, life would inevitably come back.
Are you a scientist?
No.
So then why are you, explaining science as if you know it?
No, it's just a belief, let's say.
So it's just based on nothing, right? So we shouldn't really respect it then.
Which specifically, like
But you're saying it's a belief. Like you might as well be saying, well, God wouldn't like it. It's a belief, right? So
yeah. What is a belief? What did I say?
well,
Which-
beliefs are things that are bad for you, right? It's
No.
basically believing something for no reason, right? Like believing that God exists. So yeah, you said that life would definitely it's a certainty it would come back. So that's arrogance, that's ignorance, that's overconfidence, right? You're trying to explain what's going to happen with the confidence of a god when you have actually no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Zarko, thank you for coming up. So yeah, it is extremely arrogant to say, yeah, life will definitely come back, right? You would have to be very, I don't know, like egotistical and arrogant to be able to make those kinds of claims and not realize that it's based on nothing, right? To say it's 100% coming back. And as soon as you're asked, like, how do you know that? You say, I have no idea. It's just the first thing that popped into my head. Well, it's not a very good 100% then, is it, Zarko, right? So we need to leave the science to the scientists, not to random people on TikTok, right? You know, Zarko and other people, you know, they think that we're writing notes, right? Oh, okay, Zarko said life will definitely come back. Right, let me take this to the leadership in the movement, you know, tell them the news, right? Zarko has educated us. Wow, this changes everything, right? No, that's just stupid. It's not going to work like that. We have to build an organization, a movement with intelligent people doing things intelligently. And, you know, just listening to some random person's opinion on the internet is not how we should make decisions, right? So instead of saying, oh, well, you know, a billion years from now, I know for a fact that life will return. It's like, how you don't know that, right? We should leave it to science to make these decisions. Okay? And so it's very possible that life wouldn't return. It's also possible that it would, which is why we should do the maximum to prevent it from returning, right? Instead of just, you know, coming up with random, worthless opinions on the internet, the point is to leave it to the science. Hello, how you doing? Are you suffering today? It sounds like you've had a bit too much to eat or something. Okay, we have nobody in the queue right now, so if anyone wants to debate, join in and we'll get you up. In the meantime, we'll see if there's any interesting comments in the chat. Anyone can perform the scientific method and come to conclusions. It's not exclusive to institutions. Yeah, but equally, it should be done in an institutional way, right? If you're essentially advocating for a less rigorous, less thorough, less organized way of doing science, right? Dr. Pleasant and Zarko are both essentially advocating, don't do science, just guess it, basically. Just leave it to one random person's opinion who, you know, as soon as you ask why you believe that, they say, oh, I have no idea. Yeah, that's a really great idea. We're going to go really far if we do things that way. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Hello.
Hi, I'm 20. Just
Great.
for TikTok's sake. I mean, I kind of want the argument that this perspective is true.
Yeah, there's no argument against extinction, really. The only
Yeah,
thing we
but
can
like,
do is do activism to grow the movement and make it possible. Help those who are
no,
suffering
when
with
I
action.
say, like, what's the argument? Like, I want you to tell me why it is the case that we should opt to, you know, unalive our entire species.
Well,
Like,
there's
why is
loads
that?
of arguments for it, right? But, you know, one of the best ones, I think, is that extreme suffering is unacceptable, whereas life existing is, you know, optional, basically. So we don't need life to exist. We don't need people to be running around having happiness when it's unacceptable, essentially. It comes at an unacceptable cost, which is extreme suffering, lives of pure hell, right? So that's not fair. Nobody needs to have a happy life at the expense of somebody being tortured for their whole life. That's obviously not fair and not right and not acceptable.
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that that's the way that the world works, but absent that, I mean...
Okay, well, let's hear it then.
Yeah, like you were saying, somebody is happy at the hands of somebody being tortured.
Well, I'm saying that in this world there are people being tortured, you know, begging for death, and then there are happy people. So it would be better if there was nobody being tortured, even if it means nobody's being happy.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I agree with this, but the problem is that the conclusions that we have drawn from this are entirely different. right? The solutions that I would come up to, mitigate.
Well, I'm not hearing
suffering.
any of this. You're essentially saying, yeah, but I have a complete disagreement with this argument. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
In the middle of explaining it. I'm in the middle of
Let's just hear your explanation then.
It seems like what you're telling me.
It.
Yeah, it seems like what you're telling me doesn't necessarily reach the conclusion that we should.
Yeah, again, not hearing any logic here whatsoever.
Dude, I'm pointing out a flaw in your logic.
No, you're essentially like
You didn't
discussing the
even let me
structure of it
finish.
from the outside, right?
Do you
You're
think
not
you could-
actually giving us anything to work with here.
Okay, do you think you could let me finish and then maybe you would understand?
No, I think there's nothing more interesting coming out of there. So we'll just move on. Yeah, a lot of people make the same mistake of coming up to debate and then effectively they have nothing to say. And it's like, wow, that was a waste of everyone's time. Okay, moving on. We have user 4746. Hello.
Hello. We talked yesterday too.
Yeah, what's up?
No, I just wanted to ask you how your suffering is today.
Yeah, it could be worse, I guess.
Yeah. No, I just I tried to spread our cause, and someone asked me like, yeah, but okay, what if Nelson Mandela, what if George Floyd, what if all these characters were still alive? Would you still want extinction? And I told them, these people had to suffer because our forefathers didn't know to not procreate. And,
Yeah. Well, look, it's irrelevant, really. Anyone talking about George Floyd and stuff, they're just trolling, basically, right? So, extinction isn't about hatred. It's not about one particular person like George Floyd. It's not about anything like that. It's about the fact that life shouldn't exist. It's not right for life to exist. It's not safe. And, think of it this way, right? If you could create hell and, 1% of hell is actually going to be happy, whereas 99% are going to be tortured, would you really go ahead and create hell? Hopefully the answer would be no. But, it's funny because, the same people that, hopefully, not all of them, but hopefully most of them would not create hell for no reason and just start torturing people. Unfortunately, most of them would allow hell, right? So that's what they are doing. So they wouldn't create hell, but they would allow it, right? If it already exists, then they're like, well, I didn't create it, so leave it. So that's completely insane, right? That's completely mental. If there's a literal hell where, the vast majority or anyone is being tortured, then yeah, you should shut it down, right? Let's say, imagine there's a business in the city center and, it's a party club and, 10 people are there partying, but one of them is being tortured to death, right? Do you think they would shut that club down? Or would they say, well, most of the people are having a great time, so why should we shut it down? Obviously, if anybody is suffering horrifically, then you should shut it down, right? It's not fair, it's not right. So most people don't have the sort of principles, the morality and the ethics to do that, right? They're too selfish, too animalistic, and essentially, when it comes to ethics and, what's right and wrong, they essentially just kind of default to whatever's comfortable and then try to excuse it and justify it. So, end all suffering, stop watching Netflix and start doing activism. No. We shouldn't end all suffering. Suffering is beautiful. What? It's just excuses, basically. Okay, moving on. We have people in the queue. Let's get them up. We've got Exasperated. And anybody else that wants to debate, let's get you in the queue. Let's get you on the stage. Let's hear your opinions. We'll bring you up. He looks more psychotic than Christian Bale. Do I? Well, I don't know. I don't think I'm psychotic. And you're welcome to test it by talking to me, right? Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I just want to say what you just said about hell is kind of a contradiction within itself. Hell is the entire concept of hell is to eternally suffer. So there's not going to be one section that's everyone's happy, everyone's doing good and well.
What about Satan? What about Satan? Purpose. He might be enjoying it.
All right. Have you ever heard of Dante's
demons might be
Inferno?
enjoying it, right? So
I mean,
in our world, again, we're an atheistic movement, but it is a good way to understand the world, right? To essentially see that it is hell, and the tiny minority of those enjoying it are, basically acting as demons, where they're saying, "Yeah, let's make nature documentaries, enjoy the suffering, use it for entertainment." And if anyone suggests, we actually help those who are suffering, it's like, how dare you take away my entertainment, right? So
yeah.
humans are basically demons ruling over hell and all of the suffering, and enjoying it.
Real quick, I just want to understand kind of what you believe. Are you like a accelerationist? Are you a misanthrope? Like,
No,
what
no.
do you
So I'm
believe?
neither of those. I'm an extinctionist.
Okay.
So
So,
we are compassionate people who are maximizing ethics and morality and trying to do the best thing, the right thing for the world, and that means working towards a world with no suffering, no life, and no possibility of life. And the reason for that is that life only exists because of nature, right? So nature hasn't, thought it through. Is this the right thing to do? And so life has been forced into the worst conditions with no thought, and it's just causing extreme suffering and extreme harm, right? So we are essentially people that feel for those who are suffering, realize and understand it's unacceptable, and instead of just allowing infinite extreme torture and suffering to carry on, we're actually going to put an end to it with total extinction, so that we can protect those who would otherwise suffer.
so I believe in something that is similar but not quite. I believe that we should obviously kind of push ourselves near extinction, and hopefully what blooms out of that is something better, something brighter, a world where people
So
don't
that's the thing,
suffer.
is that's a mentality that doesn't care about suffering, right? It's a mentality that just selfishly just wants a nicer world for yourself, right? But doesn't care about anyone else. So that's the problem with accelerationism and other ideologies. They're based on, what do I want for the world, for my life? But it's not based on actually caring about others and what's the best for them, whereas extinctionism is.
So I see where you're coming from, but the point is that it would be more beneficial for the entire world
How?
rather than benefiting one particular
What are you
group of,
talking about? What is
like
it?
like accelerationism. Like all right, you just said
But the thing is with
that
accelerationism, it's a meme, right? There's no actual planning, manifesto, there's no roadmap, there's nothing. It's just a joke, basically.
yeah, you do kind of have a point there, low key, but
Yeah, look, cortisol, if you actually thought accelerationism was a serious movement, then you fell for it, basically. It's actually a joke, right? It's not a serious thing. What do they have leadership? Do they have a website? Do they have a serious organization? Do they have a roadmap? Do they have principles, ethics? No, it's just, hey, extinction would be cool, right? Because we get to come back and have a different society this time. It's not a serious thing. It's like a dream that somebody had, basically. Okay, moving on. If anybody else wants to join the queue, we will get you up. Let's get some debates going. Let's hear your questions, hear your opinions. Do you believe that we should work towards a suffering-free world, or are you like most people and just don't care about the suffering? Right? Most people are kind of ignorant to all the suffering in the world. They don't care about it. And because of this, they're kind of just sheep, basically, right? They will never actually speak out against what's right or wrong. Hello, Travis. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So, how do you explain all the near extinction events of humanity in the past?
Like what?
Like all the near extinction events. There's been 6 or 7.
Nature, I guess.
Yeah, and humanity has
So you're asking me to explain them. Why? Why do I need to explain previous extinction events?
Because nature has tried to wipe out humanity several times. What makes you think you can do it?
Well, nature doesn't actually think it through, so science is much more powerful, right?
And why would you want to wipe out humanity instead of trying to fix problems? It seems like
because we've
extinction is a
determined
coward's
that
way out.
Yeah, we've determined that it's actually physically impossible to provide certainty of safety. So there is no way to fix the fact that life is in infinite danger, except for with extinction.
No, there's always a way out.
Like what?
Well, I don't have the answers. I'm not smart enough. But
Well,
there's other
then that's
people
not
that
good
can
enough,
figure
right?
it
You
out.
can't just say we should allow extreme suffering because I feel like it and I have no idea why.
Oh, there's people smarter than me that can figure that out. It's called faith.
Well, that's not a good way to try and, I don't know, like I want to say that's not a good way to think, but essentially he's saying, I don't like to think, I don't want to think, I'm going to leave it to somebody else. How can I argue with that, right? That's like, okay, go and buy a brain and come back when you got one, I guess. Okay, moving on. We've got quite a few people in the queue now, so we should be able to get some interesting debates. Let's get the next one up. We have Row Fighters. Hello.
I just want to ask a question, right? For like the earlier thing that guy was talking about, right? So the idea is that if we exist, we're always leading to suffering. So does that kind of like discount the idea that if we eventually, because humans are very innovative, right? We build and create things all the time. If we are eventually able to create a world without suffering, does that like cut out the entire idea of like us being existing and whatnot,
Yeah, so the thing about creating a perfect world with no suffering is that it would require omniscience. And so, even if that does ever happen, then great. But for now, that's essentially, you might as well be creating magic itself. So
Okay. And
that's not realistic in the meantime.
I understand that. And so then again, so you said, and let me just understand your actual argument. What is your argument again? You're saying that the forceful extinction of all life is the only right way? Like,
Well, it's the only way to end all suffering. So it's
the only way
right
to
thing
end all
do.
it's the only way to end all suffering.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not arguable. Okay, I see. I get it. All right. That's not arguable.
What's that? Okay, he lost the argument, I guess, or I don't know. He had to go. I don't know. Next person, we have Nelson coming up next. Nelson. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think it's just a bit greedy to say that just because people are suffering, you have to forcefully remove everyone else
Just
in
because
the
people are
world.
suffering.
Yeah, I mean,
Suffering's
yeah,
not
of
really
course,
very important then.
it's not that it's not important, but like clearly everyone here, even yourself, are like contributing to it, and I feel like that
Contributing
ideology
to it.
of
So working towards the end of all
yeah.
suffering, that's actually contributing to it instead of going against it.
I mean, you have a phone right now.
Yeah, Nelson.
Someone
Nelson.
probably suffered
So
having that.
you would suggest that I just live in the woods naked, basically, and allow all of the suffering to continue.
If you're advocating for it, yeah. I mean,
Yeah. So that's a really great plan, right? In order to do total extinction, I should just throw my phone away and live in the woods and never speak to anyone ever again.
yeah.
Yeah. You're a genius, Nelson. Yeah, we need you in the movement, right? We need big brains like that have really good ideas like that. Moving on, we have Lawrence in the queue. Yes. Hello. Betsy, how you doing?
You just threw me out of the chat, so I was surprised that you allowed me up.
Yeah, I mean, I might have to ban you.
Why? What triggers you so much about what I'm saying?
I don't know, you haven't said anything yet.
Well, why would you then ban me? You're not
Because
making
you
any
have
sense.
nothing to say, effectively, right?
I've
Otherwise
said
you'd be saying
multiple
it.
things. I've said multiple. You're thinking like a Zionist.
Wow, so you're racist now as well.
No, I said you're thinking like.
And what has this got to do with Zionism, right? You're just a
Why
racist.
do I
that's it.
irritate you? Answer my.
So look, this racist person, we're
I'm
going to
not
block her.
racist. I'm
She'll
a
never be
very
able to watch the
liberal.
stream. She'll never
You're
be able to watch the
weirdo.
stream again.
Weirdo.
Look, we have lots of racist people come up every day. They're either hating on white people, black people, Jews, right? She's just another one, right? I mean, we had lots of this yesterday, actually, right? People that don't have arguments. They're like, extinction. Yeah, that's interesting. How do I argue against this? I know. I'll just be really racist and not even mention extinction. So that's kind of, one of the things about extinctionism is that there is no argument against it. So that's why you will see just people saying crazy things. Lawrence, hello.
Hiya, mate. You alright?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah. Well. I like the guy that said about just moving out to the woods and living out there.
Yeah, that was a
that's not
genius
bad shout.
idea, right? Go in the woods. Don't talk to anyone ever again. Step 2, question mark, question mark, question mark. Step 3, extinction. Done. Yeah, genius, right?
Well,
in fact, I'm going to tell the rest of the activists in the movement: throw your phones away, throw your clothes away, come and live in the woods naked.
My only argument against would be I love people around me, So my my mother. I haven't got children, but things like this, family members, friends.
Right.
This would be my argument against extinction, in a way. Does that make sense?
So there are some happy people, and that's your argument against extinction.
Forceful tax.
But why should anybody have to suffer, Lawrence?
Because suffering is a perspective, isn't it? It's something that happens to a select group of things that live.
A select group
on this earth? No. You're not hearing me out. So, a hamster will suffer. A mosquito won't suffer. Yeah.
How do you know?
Because you have to be a mammal to suffer.
How do you know? So you don't know. You're just saying things.
You're saying that you would trade.
Lawrence, let's try to avoid saying things that we have literally zero basis for saying, right?
Yeah, but
if you have zero basis,
on this
right?
Stuff?
If I ask you,
keep popping up every time.
And I ask you, why do you believe that? And you say, I have no reason to believe it, but I do. Then you're no better than a religious person, basically, right?
Yeah, but then, see, I have actually been looking into my religious, because
Lawrence,
a lot
this
of
has
these
nothing to do with the fact that you're
atheist.
trying to discriminate against animals and say some of them suffer, some of them don't, so who cares, just let them suffer. That's not going to work. And look, he was like, only mammals suffer. It's like, on what basis? And he's like, I need a basis to say things? Hello, how you doing?
Hi, James. I'm not too bad, thanks. I've just got one hypothetical question to ask you, and then I'll leave you alone. If we could develop a technology, or an alien species could develop a technology and come here, and it removes all suffering, past, present, and future, right? Would you abandon extinctionism?
But it depends on the details of it.
So literally, the only details of it are that it ends all suffering without the need for extinction.
It has an omniscience level certainty of safety then.
Yeah.
So you might as well just be saying like heaven, suddenly exists in that.
Because as you would be aware, that if we took our technology now back to the past, they would think that that's magic. So if we found a species out in space that was light years ahead of us, that had been able to remove all forms of suffering by pressing a button on this box, and it removes all suffering, past, present, future, would you abandon extinctionism?
Yeah. So the thing is that the standard of safety would require basically omniscience at the very least, right?
Yeah. So this technology provides that. So would you abandon extinctionism should this technology emerge?
Only if it has like omniscience level safety, right? Where it's physically impossible for anything to go wrong.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I wanted to ask, mate. Thanks very much.
Yeah. So the standards for life existing should be the highest standards like imaginable, basically, right? There's no reason for life to have to suffer through inferior standards. So life should only exist when there's certainty of safety, and only omniscience can provide that, right? So you would have to know for a fact that there were no unknowns, that would be a necessity, right? Because unknowns present infinite danger, infinite risk, and infinite lack of control, basically. So you really would have to be all-knowing in order for it to be safe for life to exist. Okay, we have more people coming up. We have Math Dad coming up next. Someone saying life is awesome, not for those that suffer. Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I just was curious. I just was hoping I could get clarification on what you're saying. Are you saying no amount of suffering at all is okay? Like, let's say that. So, if we could prove, so even if our society could evolve to where there was, 1% of the population experience suffering.
So there's no amount of suffering that's acceptable. Most people have the mistake of thinking that suffering becomes acceptable as long as there's enough people somewhere else that are happy. So like a child being abused to death, oh, that's unacceptable. But if there's somebody else like miles away that's happy, now it's okay. So that it doesn't work like that, right? So that's wrong. And no amount of suffering is acceptable. And it doesn't become acceptable just because some other person somewhere else is happy.
Yeah. I mean, that gets really, really complicated. If you believe, I mean, I have kind of a weird philosophy that if you view people as independent beings and not like one collective consciousness, like the only reason why, I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but anyway, thanks for your clarification on that viewpoint.
All right, thank you, Math Dad. Moving on, we have Cash 007. It sounds like Math Dad was going to, extol the virtues of freedom, but those freedoms cause suffering. Hello, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was saying, you say suffering, you want no suffering. I was thinking, like, how about we just like eliminate like who's suffering to leave who like living good? You feel me?
What?
Eliminate who's suffering and left the rest. Like, everybody want to go.
The only way to end all suffering is with total extinction. Unless you make the species and all species go extinct, suffering will just continue on, and it's not acceptable.
Everybody don't suffer though.
So what? You would only agree with extinction if everybody suffers?
Yeah.
Right. So 99% of the population could be begging for death, and you would say no, extinction's wrong.
We could just kill the 99% and just leave the 1% not suffering. Feel me?
And how good of a solution is that? Right? Is that going to always work?
Yep.
So you think we should allow people to be tortured horrifically and then just kill them? You think that's ethical? So that we can have fun, we should torture people horrifically and kill them. You think that's makes sense?
I ain't say that.
But you did. You said that we should allow them to suffer horrifically and then kill them.
No, I ain't say that. I said who's suffering.
No. You said we just kill all of the sufferers and then we have non-sufferers, and if they start to suffer, we just murder them as well. Exactly. And then we just keep having fun.
Well, not murder them, but like, that thing you was talking about.
Yeah, but so how does this help wild animals, right? How does this prevent somebody from, abusing a child?
Goddamn, I don't know.
It doesn't, right? It doesn't. So look, prevention is the only way to deal with suffering. Treating it after the fact is not good enough, right? That's what, people say that justice is how to deal with it after the fact. But if somebody murders a child, right, the child doesn't benefit just because the murderer then goes to prison. Right? That's too little, too late, and we need to prevent that suffering, not allow it, right? That's just crazy. Okay, moving on. So, I mean, there is never a good reason to just allow suffering for fun, right? Suffering isn't something which can be accepted. It's not something acceptable which you can say, well, as long as As long as at least 50% of the population is happy, then yeah, who cares about the minority? Just let them, beg for death. That's not a good system. It's not acceptable. Hello, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I would just like to kind of clarify your stance here. If in a hypothetical there was just one person suffering, so everyone else wasn't, there was one person, would that still for you be too much suffering?
Yeah.
What is there any? Yes.
Yeah, it's still too
So
much. Yeah.
the whole world's happy and one person is suffering a bit. It's too much suffering.
Yeah, it's not acceptable.
Okay, and then say a privileged person life, right? They've got a good life, they're happy, they don't want to die, etc. In their life, they will still be suffering.
Yeah.
Is for them. So if everybody lived a life like that, so just that level of suffering, it's not extreme suffering, it's just a bit of suffering, but they believe their happiness, the joys of their life outweigh that suffering. Is that suffering still too much? Does suffering hold a much higher moral
no, but
ground
that's
than
not a
happiness?
realistic scenario, right? That will never be a realistic scenario.
But if it was, it would
But
be.
again, the fact that it's unrealistic means it doesn't actually progress the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not anti-extinctionism. I'm just trying
There
to.
will never be a situation where suffering is limited to a certain amount like that. That's the problem with suffering. It's unlimited. You can't control it, right? It can go wrong. So there will never be a situation where you only stub your toe. That's a fantasy. It's a myth. It's not the correct way of thinking about this. It's a delusion, right? You're deluding yourself instead of focusing on the reality.
I mean, quality of life is improving, around.
Not for
for
animals.
humans. For humans. Okay, for humans, right?
Yeah, but quality of life improving isn't good enough, right? That's like saying, well, we can reduce slavery a little bit, and then that's good enough, right? So
We have
people
reduced
have
slavery.
this kind of incorrect understanding of suffering as being like, suffering, who cares? Whereas slavery, it's like, oh yeah, end all slavery. But suffering, yeah, extreme torture, not so bad. So we have to start seeing suffering as being worse than slavery, right? You can't say, yeah, who cares about a bit of slavery, right? You'd obviously be an evil person for saying that.
Well,
But it should be the same with suffering.
Many people do have that mindset. They just don't
That
say
doesn't
it
make
about.
it okay. That doesn't make it okay.
I'm just saying it's a common mindset. I don't.
Doesn't
believe
make it okay.
So do you believe that happiness or joy holds any I don't know what the word for it is, any virtue, any
moral value?
that
It does, but it's virtually zero in comparison to safety from suffering, which has infinite moral value.
because you'd rather experience nothing than the best happiness and then the worst suffering, or
Well, look. Again, you can't. You're not working with reality here, right? So if we're working with reality, then yeah, total extinction is the only way to guarantee no more extreme suffering, no more bad lives, no more people or animals being forced into extreme suffering ever again. And if you think about it, life doesn't really need to exist, right? Nobody has to live their life. It's not really urgent or necessary. It's just a privilege, a bit of fun. That's it, really. And to say that is, worthy of causing, the worst suffering possible, that's just completely insane.
how much suffering would you be willing to cause to end all suffering?
Quite a lot, right? I mean, you have basically infinite suffering to deal with. So we should, I mean, yeah, there's almost no amount of suffering that it's basically impossible to cause more suffering with extinction than you would prevent.
Because life is going to go on for quite a much
Well, yeah,
longer.
look, if we have to torture everyone for 10,000 years
That's
to do
nothing.
extinction, that would be
Yeah.
nothing, compared to billions of years of more suffering.
Is that why you're also a bit of an advocate against, say, suicide instead of joining the movement? Because
Yeah, so we actually need more humans. The more humans, the better right now. The more humans we have, the more scientists we'll have, the faster our society will progress, and the sooner we'll be able to do a proper animal extinction and, prevention of life and, a proper extinction, basically. So most people would just, rush it, allow humanity to just die out, and then animals would just suffer on forever, or they'll evolve back into humans. So we can't rush it like that. We have billions of years of suffering to prevent. We have to do it properly.
So you're against when you see declining birth rates in first world countries, that's a alarming sign to you.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So humanity is actually the solution, right? We're not the problem, right? Humanity is 0.0001% of the population on Earth or less. And yet we're the only ones that can actually help. So we are the solution for the vast majority of the population who is suffering worse than us horrifically and can't help themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. I fully agree. I mean, it gets me, I hate people often, I remember watching nature documentaries and you see what happens to animals and people be like, oh, it's nature.
Exactly.
It's okay, but it's...
So they're just watching cruelty and suffering for entertainment.
Yeah. Okay, well, nice getting to understand a little bit better.
All right, Fortnite Lord, thank you for coming up. Feel free to check out our website, proextinction.com, watch some videos on my channel, or come up again if you'd like and ask more questions. Okay, moving on. We've got a lot of people in the queue now. So we have Ethereal Beauty coming up next. Bringing them on, beaming them onto the Enterprise. The transporter is malfunctioning. It's not loading them up. So let's move on to the next person. We have Ibby in the queue. Hello, how you doing?
Hey man, how you doing? A couple of questions. You seem to have what might come across as an arbitrary sense of responsibility for animals on Earth that doesn't, for some reason, extend to all life in the universe.
What do you
help
mean?
me understand why it's important for us to, you were talking about how you want to grow the movement so that you can kind of appropriately take care of animals on Earth before all human beings are taken care of. But
No. So we support universe-wide extinction as well.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. So, the kind of technology that would be required for us to, be interstellar travelers, spread across the universe and be able to appropriately deal with all suffering. Why is that less realistic than one of the previous callers saying that we develop essentially technologically enough to deal with suffering itself and not require?
Great question. So even a complete and permanent universe-wide extinction would not require, hypothetically or theoretically, omniscience, whereas life existing with zero chance of suffering would require omniscience.
I'm not sure I buy that, to be honest.
Why?
I don't know that you would need omniscience. I think you would need to understand. Maybe actually, to your point, I was just about to say you need to understand fundamentally kind of the laws of physics and be able to manipulate it completely. I think the word omniscience has a lot of religious baggage to it, so I actually find myself resisting that it's possible. But I don't know why practically couldn't be possible that we fundamentally understand the laws of physics enough to be able to manipulate it sufficiently such that no suffering occurs. And again, I'm surprised that you think
doing it in a way that no suffering occurs is one thing, right? Doing it in a way where there is effectively zero chance of it going wrong is a different thing. And that's why the standard for safety, for life existing, is omniscience, right? Because otherwise, if there are unknowns, then there's infinite danger.
Yeah, I buy that, but then just empirically speaking, let's imagine you can't be omniscient. Let's imagine you can only have a high level of confidence, but not 100% confidence. I think that's a reasonable.
Well, no, that's not reasonable, right? Because you're
I'm not saying it's.
You're not considering the victims.
I'm not saying it's reasonable for that to be the case. I'm saying it's reasonable of you to say that omniscience isn't something that we can achieve. I'm just saying that you're right. That I don't think that it's not reasonable to stipulate that we can be 100% sure that we can avoid all suffering. But I'm saying empirically, let's imagine we can be 95% sure. And that avoids the eradication of all life across the universe and just the amount of suffering that would result from that, right? Because we're not just talking about...
There wouldn't be... No, so extinction doesn't really cause any suffering.
You don't think that... Let's imagine, again, this hypothetical, we become interstellar. Our technology is obviously incredibly, incredibly advanced to the point where we can travel across the entire universe.
Yeah.
And, we somehow develop this kind of procedure where like everyone's going to be killed at the same time. I don't know what the logistics are going to be for that, but
Why would it have to be at the same time?
maybe not at the same time. Fair enough. And that actually kind of makes my point a little bit more. So the entire universe is going to have to watch while parts of it are slowly eradicated.
Watch. What, you think one galaxy is going to be watching the other?
Well, I think if we're interstellar and we're able to traverse the entire, I imagine it's then the human species just watching itself or being aware of itself eradicating the entire universe. Like there's no amount of, you don't think that's going to result in a significant amount?
No, absolutely. Hell no. Not even remotely significant.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the entire universe. I mean, it's an expanding universe. The amount of life is maybe incalculable in itself. Like it's unbelievable.
I'm still not understanding what suffering you're actually talking about.
So maybe let me get curious.
Look, over 99.9% of suffering in the world is just animals tearing each other apart. So
in the world,
I'm not really understanding how extinction is going to make that worse.
I totally agree with you, but we're not talking about just animals on Earth, right? I mean,
we should include animals, right?
100%. No, I agree we should include animals, but why aren't we including all the potential sentient creatures across the universe?
Well, I am. But extinction won't make them suffer. It will prevent them from suffering.
I agree with you that the awareness of animals won't have
so this is just insane, right? You actually think that they're going to have binoculars from one galaxy to the other and say, oh no, they're going extinct. This is making me suffer so badly watching this that it's worse than what's happening to all the wild animals, being tortured horrifically, right? That's just completely insane. Just completely insane. But a lot of people have made a similar argument where they say that, the humans that have to know that extinction is coming, their suffering will outweigh billions of years of animals tearing each other apart. That's just stupid, right? You would have to be incredibly stupid to think that, right? Like ridiculously stupid. So humans actually suffer the least and animals suffer the most. So to say that we should prioritize human suffering is just insane. Hello, how you doing?
Yo, bro, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks, bro. I wanted to ask you, my main question is how you consider the main possibility of reincarnation of any sorts?
We see no evidence for it. And even if reincarnation does exist, then extinction prevents reincarnation to suffer again.
We don't have any exact model of how consciousness actually works.
Right, but there's no reason to believe it's reincarnation, right? That's a spiritual, magical kind of thing, right?
No.
Yeah, it is. It is.
If there is
I'm sorry, but the idea of reincarnation does absolutely imply some level of magic, right? Or some sort of supernatural. There's no evidence for it. There's no reason to believe it exists. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, good. How about you?
Good, thank you.
So I've read your manifesto on the website, right? And I guess the question I have is, do you think that action should have consequences?
I don't tend to think in such bizarre kind of principles like that then end up torturing the real life.
So I guess like a lot of suffering guides choice paths, right? Like we don't.
I'm starting to think that are you a philosophy bro? Has philosophy rotted your brain?
No, man. What I'm asking is like, how are you even going to have a choice path at all? Like you don't put your hand on the stove because you would suffer from it, right? There's a lot of things you don't do.
It sounds like a lot of
because suffering is a choice.
A lot of philosophy going on. A lot of just gibberish, nonsense, nothing understandable.
Okay, well if you can't understand, I'll just drop. See you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for coming up. Stay away from philosophy. You will just start to say complete gibberish. Zach, hello, how you doing?
When's the last time you had a beer and went outside and went camping or something?
A beer? Ooh. I don't know, a couple weeks ago.
I don't know, man. I feel like your life philosophy is pretty fucked up. Maybe you should just like go out, have a good time, get laid,
So
do
just
bad.
ignore it. So just pretend, find a way to
Go
ignore
to an
all of
EDM
the
show.
suffering.
I don't know. Go to a rave or something.
To find a
Go
way
have
to
some fun,
ignore
dude.
all of the suffering and those who need help.
Well, how's fucking ending the world gonna fucking help anyone? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it would help those who are, wishing they'd never been born, begging for death, facing a life
They
of
can just
pure
do
hell.
that shit themselves. Don't kill me off, bro. What the fuck?
Well,
Trying to
no,
go to
it
fucking
doesn't work
EDC,
like that.
bro.
It doesn't work like that, right? So,
Yeah, it does.
unless you do total extinction, there'll always be extreme suffering, right?
Yeah,
And
but if you
victims-
never suffer, how are you gonna get better in life? If you never struggle, how are you gonna fucking learn?
Well, yeah, but the thing is that that's not the only type of suffering in the world, right? Helpful suffering. So you're thinking about good suffering, whereas you're ignoring the fact that there's extreme and unacceptable suffering in the world.
Yeah, I mean, life's not fair. Did anyone tell you that? It really isn't fair. It's not like
Yeah,
you gotta-
that's why we should abolish it. That's the fair thing to do. the right
Dude, you
thing.
can't be serious, bro. That's crazy.
Well, you're saying it's not fair. It's wrong. So why should we allow it?
Allow suffering because it's just how fucking world works, dude. I mean, nature in itself is
So
suffering.
we should allow child abuse because that's just the way it is.
No one said we should allow child abuse.
That's your standard for allowing child abuse or not. But who cares? That's the way it is.
No, I never said that. I just said
Yeah, it
that.
is.
I mean, to abolish, to kill everyone would be child abuse itself, you idiot. What are you
So
talking about?
what would have more child abuse, an extinction or billions of more years of life?
What the fuck? What if you want to kill yourself, do it then. I don't care. It's not my problem.
You're
but
not
don't
able to
drag
answer
us
that
down.
question then, Zach? Not able to answer that question?
What do you mean am I not able to answer the question? Go
You're just
outside,
incapable.
drink a beer.
Incapable, right?
Go get laid, go touch some
You don't have
grass.
the capacity
go...
to answer that question then?
I mean, do you have little brothers and sisters, or do you have
I've
any
asked you
family
that
that
5
gives
or
a
6
fuck?
times now, Zach. We're going to keep going. See if you're able to
I don't
answer
understand
that
your
question.
philosophy. Why would you kill everyone? That doesn't make
So,
sense.
Zach, how would billions of more years of life continuing have more suffering than extinction, which is what you said?
We're gonna suffer no matter what. People suffer. It happens. I don't understand your philosophy here. That
So this is like the 10th time you've dodged the question now, Zach. So we'll try one more time.
because the
before
question
people-
is dumb.
We'll,
It's fucking.
We'll
doesn't
try
make
one more
sense.
time. It's not done. This
What,
is
what are you,
said.
Thanos, bro?
These-
You're gonna snap your fingers and kill everyone off?
Zach, these
This
are
is
your
the dumbest
words.
thing ever.
Zach, these are your words. You said that extinction would have more suffering than it prevents, right? So how would it have more suffering compared to billions of more years of suffering? I've asked you about
People-
10 times now.
Either way, you're suffering, but not everyone
I've
suffers.
asked you about 10 times now.
You
to
said,
explain
does everyone
your
suffer?
words.
Does everyone suffer?
So when you said that extinction would have more suffering than billions of
Well,
more
yes, because
years,
you killed everyone off. You wouldn't, and not everyone's suffering, right? So by your logic, everyone is just suffering. It's horrible. Everyone's having a bad time. If you're
there
having
you
a
go.
bad time, then
There
you can
is
do that.
the
I'm not.
classic straw man that we get every single day, right? Oh, you've said everyone is suffering, that all life is suffering. There it is again, right? We get this like several times a day, and it is a very common psychological phenomenon where essentially people cannot debate against extinction, right? Because it is correct. And so they get desperate, and there's a very common psychological sort of draining hole, right? Where they all fall into the same trap. So for whatever reason, it's just, that's just how their brain works, right? It's, you give it certain things and you'll see patterns, you'll see common things. And one of them is that they'll all say, you think all life is suffering. Even though we never say that, right? And they only say that, which is a direct straw man, because that's what they want to argue against, right? They want me to say that all life is suffering, even though it's not, right? And that also demonstrates their incredibly non-existent standards for morality, right? Because again, they're saying we should only care about people if everybody is suffering. So, again, I've explained this millions of times now. This mentality basically says, unless literally every single last person is begging for death, then I won't support extinction. Right? So, it could get to 99.9% begging for death, begging for extinction, and he would be in the minority who is still okay, and he would say, no, 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 no. It's not everybody, right? It's not 99.9% of the population is begging for death. Well, I'm not going to allow it because it's not everybody, right? That's the level of mental disability that we're dealing with here. where they quite literally are saying, and this is not an exaggeration or a straw man, this is directly following what their words, right? That even if 99.9% of the population is begging for death, then they still won't support it. Ruktiet, hello, how you doing?
Hi, James. Well, I would say that within your model, your moral model or framework, I agree. I think you draw the correct inferences. However, I think it's a bit myopic or a bit restricted to only reason in terms of suffering and shoulds. Because what does that even mean? And why would you restrict yourself to only look at suffering as a sort of moral
When have I
guide to
said
what
that I
the should
restrict
be?
myself to only look at suffering? So you're straw manning right now, basically.
Wait, why am I strawmanning?
Because I've never said that I restrict myself to only consider suffering. And you're saying that I do.
I haven't heard a single argument that used anything else but the amount of suffering and the.
It was only about half an hour
omnipotent-
ago that someone asked, does happiness and life have moral value? And I said yes.
Okay, but if suffering is infinite in the sort of utilitarian point of view, then it will always outweigh it. Right?
Yeah. So the thing is that you have to have a zero tolerance policy on extreme suffering because it is unacceptable.
But why? Why is that your premise?
Because the thing is that for any life form, intense extreme suffering is it's the worst thing possible for them, right? So it's
For them, right?
Yeah.
But why would that imply that someone else should care about that and do something about that? Because
because
that
caring about others and
implies that you
making
have
sure
something
that
to do about it.
Yeah, caring
And you
about
should do
others.
something about it.
Caring about others and trying to make sure that the world is fair and right and ethical, that's something that you should do if you care about being a good person. So you're asking, why should we care? Well, essentially, it's if you want to be a good person or not. Most humans don't care about being a good person, so they're happy quite literally to be bad people, right? They actually think it's better to do that. So if you care about being a good person, you care about what's right and wrong, then yeah, absolutely, you should say that extreme suffering is unacceptable, and you shouldn't say that, well, it's unacceptable unless somebody else is happy.
But
Then
not
it doesn't matter
unacceptable
how
at the
badly
cost
they're
of
suffering.
taking away someone else's chances at life.
So you
That's
think
also
that,
part of a moral
so
framework,
you
right?
think that denying happiness would be unfair, but that allowing extreme suffering is fair?
Yes, it does not
So
justify that
allowing
in my
children
moral
to be
framework.
abused
No.
to death is fair, but not allowing the abuser to have that fun would be unfair.
That's not that's a completely different that is a straw man.
How?
Because you are not taking away the life of the abusers so that the suffering can be prevented.
What do you mean?
Can you restate the setup here?
So yeah, we're simply saying that extreme torture, extreme suffering is unacceptable, and will never be acceptable, right? Whereas most people think that as long as somebody else is happy, then a child being abused to death, suddenly now that's okay, that becomes acceptable.
No, that's how utilitarianism can be used by applying a sort of utility function to the state of the world or state of all humans with restraints. Restraints being, we're trying to optimize utility, so taking into account, factoring in all the happiness and suffering, blah, 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 but with the restraint of, hey, ending someone's life is not allowed, for example, like hard nose.
So we'll make it possible, but not allow it at the same time.
Make what possible?
Immorality, murder, whatever else, right? So right now, people are saying, yeah, we don't allow child abuse. And then guess what? Guess what's happening? Child abuse, right? Because you're allowing people to do that and saying, well, if we catch you, then we'll stop you.
No, we can prevent child abuse while still at the same time not ending everyone's life, because that would lead to lower utility than if we were to.
So the problem with your utility thing is it allows infinite suffering, basically.
It does not.
It does, right? It technically there is scope for infinite suffering within it.
Well, you could say we can hypothetically, because yours is also hypothetical, right?
No.
Because because you want to end all life in the universe. That's the end goal here, right? As a preventative measure, right?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, then what is it?
So the goal is the most vast and thorough extinction possible.
Okay, the most fast possible.
The most vast, as in the biggest, like the most all-covering.
But right now, or when technology is better, because once that takes place, technology cannot advance, and then you can only reach as much of that
but
extinction.
we could start extinction today, though, right, with animals and stuff. So
Yeah, but
there's nothing
let's imagine we can do that,
hypothetical
right?
about extinction. It's purely practical.
Okay. Still, this is all a distraction from the fact that it does not factor into account a positive thing to counteract that.
So, but
the suffering.
The thing is like I've been explaining over the last hour, your mentality is essentially saying, oh, you're not considering happiness, right? As long as one person is happy, then that's all that matters. You know, everyone else can be begging for death, and we won't allow it so that one person can be happy, right? It's essentially allows the worst case possible, right? Whereas we're saying, yeah, we shouldn't allow that, right? We shouldn't say, yeah, if one person's happy and the rest of the world is begging for death, we should keep them begging for death because one person is happy.
As long
That's
as
just
more
insane.
are. As long as more are, yes.
As long as what?
More people are in a certain weighing, then I would say yes. That is better than everyone
you're
being
one of
extinct.
these 50% people. You think that 51% torturing the 49% is acceptable as long as, yeah, that's what the 51%
Okay,
says.
if you're asking me, do I prefer the situation where 51% of the population is torturing 49% of the population, or the other scenario where everyone is extinct, then I would still prefer the first one, yes. Of course.
Yeah. So that's
I think a lot of people would agree with me.
Yeah, but that's completely evil, right?
I disagree. I think it's more evil to plea for extinction.
So you think a world where 49% of the population is being tortured forever by 51%
Yes.
is good?
Yes, it's better. No, it's not good. I'm saying it's better.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
better.
Well, that's just stupid, right? So he's demonstrating perfectly that he would be very happy, thrilled even to be in a society where 51% is torturing the 49% in the worst ways possible, like the worst torture, the worst oppression, just absolute child abuse, person abuse, right? Slavery, murder. He would say, yeah. If that's the only two choices, billions of years of 51% of the population horrifically torturing the 49% in the worst ways possible, like the very worst ways. He would say, yeah, that's worth doing. That's better than not having it. So that's completely insane, right? You would have to be a complete crazy person to think, yeah, 49% of the population being tortured in the worst ways possible, that's acceptable, right? That's not a problem. That's fine. As long as I'm on the 51% side, then it's okay. So that's just crazy, right? That's completely crazy, right? These same people, by that logic, it does mean, right? Because they are saying that the majority should decide everything, right? And so, yeah, by that logic, if 51% of people are pedophiles, then they should be allowed to, legalize child abuse, right? He's saying that the 51%, the majority, allow them to do anything, right? If they want to rape children, they're the majority, let them do it. So this is actually really interesting, right? Because if you were in a society where 51% were basically Nazis and they're torturing the 49%, he would literally say, guys, we shouldn't protest against this. We shouldn't say this is wrong, right? This is good, right? 51% has decided that the worst torture and cruelty possible is good. So we should support the majority, right? So, in Nazi Germany, he would have been a Nazi as well. He would have been like, well, the majority said I should be a Nazi and start torturing people. So that's morality, right? If the majority decides it, then child abuse, I'm your friend now. The majority has decided it, so now it's okay. This is a stupid mentality, right? This is saying never think for yourself, never use your own brain. As long as the majority supports it, then it's automatically okay. You know, if the majority supports child abuse, then I support child abuse now as well. That's his thinking, right? It's completely insane. Right? The majority is not automatically correct. And if you just give a blank check to the majority, they're going to abuse the minority. And he's supporting that. So, you know, that really is insane, right? The two options for that debate, right, were nobody's suffering, total extinction, right? Everything, you know, nobody's being tortured, but nobody's being happy. Or, right, 49% of the population being tortured in the worst ways possible for all of time, right? He would quite happily have, you know, the worst torture possible, the worst child abuse imaginable on a massive portion of the population, 49%, right? he would basically, you know, he would be in hell, right? He would be ruling hell as Satan. And he would say, well, you know, as long as it's not, you know, a majority, you know, calling out against this, then fuck it. Let's keep the torture going. That's just crazy, right? You know, to say that morality depends on the majority, that's not morality, right? That's just stupid. Hello, how you doing?
Pretty good. Really, I have a question about is extinction your first plan of action?
As opposed to what?
Moral reform before that. Like you just went straight to extinction.
Yeah, basically. So what we are doing is we're growing the movement with peaceful activism until we have enough people to take over the world, start to run it ethically, and start to do extinction. Yeah.
So you're saying that even in your own circle of the people who believe in your own movement, after completely taking over the world, you're saying that you are not able to, or you don't see a state in which the world can be ran in a way that all sort of immoral acts can be outruled.
That's it. Correctly. That's correct. So it's not just about immoral acts, though. It's not just about immoral acts, right? Immorality is not the only cause of suffering.
Well, then what other causes besides literally immorality would cause suffering for? Because I'm hearing that you specifically target human beings in this.
No, not.
So you're saying all animals.
All life.
So
yeah, everything.
the idea that an animal could be suffering due to the fact that it exists, you know, probably food chain shit like, oh, a shark will eat a fucking shark.
Exactly.
A shark. You're saying that we should wipe out all animals because of natural causes. Like the state of living in nature
you're for some reason you're saying, oh, natural causes or human. No, just all types of suffering. Doesn't matter what the cause is. Why does it matter if it's human caused or nature caused?
I mean, at that, I somewhat agree that it's like, oh, we don't like suffering, but I wouldn't say suffering in all ways is bad. Like if I work out, right, my muscles are suffering.
So does it have to be bad in all ways for it to be unacceptable?
Yeah, because you're saying if it's not bad.
So let's say you've got like 99% of the population is being tortured, begging for death, but 1% is at the gym having a great time. So now the other suffering becomes acceptable because you're at the gym having a great time with your gym suffering.
Is that your organization, whatever, is not able to make it to where 99% of it, or even 100% of it, is just working out.
What on earth are you talking about? You think life boils down to get the animals in the gym, right? Replace their suffering with weights and iron pumping.
Well, I don't think extreme suffering is like being food. Like we're all gonna die.
You're not making. I don't even know what you're trying to say at this point.
I'm saying that you're suffering. You keep on bringing torture up. Like everyone's gonna get tortured, and it's fine if most people get tortured.
Oh, so all life suffers. Everyone's gonna get tortured, right? Another classic straw man.
No, I'm saying that's your arguments to most people coming up here.
Yeah, exactly. Classic straw man. I never said that. I never say that. So at that point, you're
that's
finished,
what I'm
right?
saying.
He's finished. He's straw manning, right? He's run out of reality to engage with. So now he's delving into the fake, the imaginary, the invented, right? Much easier to find something less difficult to argue against if you just imagine it. I never said all life is suffering. I've never said that everyone is going to be tortured. And if you have to believe that so that you can, for your own ego, then go for it. Trevor, hello.
Hello. Would you say that your existence would come at a cost of other people suffering as humans? With all the animals that we
No, there's just always going to be loads of suffering. We're in an ocean of suffering. Trying to, differentiate between one drop of suffering and another just doesn't make sense.
Right. Would you say that you're an antinatalist?
No.
No. You don't think that we should stop procreating to prevent suffering?
No. So that wouldn't actually prevent suffering. So it might prevent your child from suffering, but it doesn't prevent anyone else's child or animals or anything like that. So antinatalism is like the most counterproductive, backwards, worst way to go about extinction possible, because you're literally asking people to stop reproducing when they're never going to do it. Actually, you're not even doing that, right? Most antinatalists aren't going out doing activism. They're just not having children. So the idea that that's going to somehow result in humanity going extinct is a joke, and it's not going to make animals go extinct either. So antinatalism is basically one of the stupidest things in the world, right? Just call it being child-free. Just say the truth and just say, I can't be bothered to have a kid. That's all it is.
Okay. And how would you think the world should go extinct? What's the most graceful way, do you think?
Euthanasia.
So everybody should be euthanized?
Yeah.
Right, okay. That'll be all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Trevor. But we also accept painful extinction, right, if necessary. Now, this is more about like the principles and like the logic of it. But yeah, if extinction has to be painful, then we would accept it. Obviously, we will go for the least painful way that we can, but not if that is going to cause more suffering, right? Because, if you spend another 10 years to make the extinction less painful, then it's just pointless. You've just caused 10 years of extreme suffering, whereas the extinction and the euthanasia is going to, last a minute or something, right? Not 10 years. So, considering that the euthanasia is going to last like 1 minute, it doesn't make sense to, spend a long time, years trying to make it less painful. Hello, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm doing great. I was listening very carefully in the background. It's one of these things that, to be honest with you, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm not here to debate because there is no way it is possible. Because I'm not here to kiss your ass or something, but it's something that whatever you're saying as a mission, it's something that cannot be debated. And people will are trying their best, in the sense that maybe not the mission is so bad, but then take it into other grounds and stuff. But I have a question. So this is not going to be a debate. This is just a question. I would like to hear your idea, The question is this, right? Because, ultimately, the previous gentleman and the previous gentleman before that and stuff, when they ask you, don't you have a family, for example, or the person who was debating about the 51%, not suffering, 49 suffering, that's better, And the example I want to give in parallel, in conjunction to this, because I want to make a point to ask the question, right, is that if you think in the world sense, for example, in the countries and stuff, for the less fortunate and sick and everything, right, the society does enough for them to survive. And that's pretty much it. You see? It's like in our day-to-day lives, if someone died, without any context for political correctness, you always have to show grief and everything. It's like they have to be sad about it. And then again, apart, even if many people who try to harm themselves, God forbid, even the body is protecting itself from that. My question to you is, it's like there is a very subconscious presupposition that life is dear. And it works pretty much automatically, in a social way, in a day-to-day, even the body itself. The body will do everything to survive as long as possible without even thinking.
It's survival instinct, right? So the thinking that life is dear and arguing against extinction, when they're arguing against extinction so vehemently, right? That is a large part of it is just their survival instinct, because essentially when you're asking them to accept extinction, you're basically asking them to be willing to give up their life, right? You're basically saying, are you willing to die today if necessary to do the right thing? And the truth is that no, they're not, basically.
When you say, you know why I asked about this? Because I would like to hear your thoughts more in a conceptual sense, because we can just call it a survival instinct and move on, right? But it seems like if, let's say, a total extinction is much better, to be honest with you, at this point, I have to say it is. My question to you is, the entire, let's say, nature, okay, we won't want to get spiritual and stuff, the entire nature is against it in a sense, like, I mean, the nature technically doesn't regard too much about, like, who suffers or not, right, from what we see. Is to survive as long as possible, which is again a very bad idea, at least for humans. Like a long life doesn't mean a good life in any case. But why do you think conceptually every single thing in this world, be it a cell, be it a human, be it even a society or a country, they're fighting to just be alive?
Yeah, it's very easy to answer this. It's just because that's how evolution works. So, you start out as bacteria, and then you evolve to glorify life, right? So the smarter ones, they go extinct, and those that become more and more programmed to be irrational and to glorify life and to ignore suffering. So I mean, look, this is the rational position, right? That life shouldn't exist, that we should have high standards for life, that we should be considerate, and so that is the normal position, right? That's normal intelligence, right? Extinctionism isn't like super intelligence. It's actually just normal intelligence. And so to go from the normal to then twist it and turn it and make it monstrous, that's what evolution has done, basically. So it's filled the brain with viruses and bloatware and loads of junk, basically, because otherwise it would just work normally. So we have to start seeing extinctionism as the normal standard level of intelligence, and essentially everything else is made to be less intelligent, less irrational, because it benefits reproduction. So the more religious people were, the more selfish and paranoid and all of this stuff, all of these terrible things, all of these negative traits for humanity benefit reproduction. So that's why we have racism, sexism, rape, violence, every last terrible thing to do with humanity and even animals, right? If they, attack you or whatever. All of these negative things benefit reproduction. And so that's why they're there. They wouldn't be there, sexism, racism, etc. It wouldn't be there if it didn't benefit reproduction. So the worse a life form is, the less functional it is, the less intelligent it is, the less rational it is, the better, basically. So, that's why we live in a world of crazy people, because all of the intelligent ones went extinct, and, essentially what benefits survival and reproduction is irrationality.
Right. I actually never heard anyone put it that way, to benefit the reproduction itself. It sounds like, honestly, like a cosmic joke, as if everything is kind of made backwards, by whoever.
Well, that's the point, is that reproduction, like you say, it's made backwards, basically. So, but reproduction is kind of like one of the main forces of nature. So, everything that's alive, its traits, everything about it is determined by, does this benefit reproduction? And so, one of the worst things for reproduction is considering suffering, right? Being responsible, being ethical, having empathy, right? All of these things massively go against reproduction. So the best thing for reproduction is actually zero intelligence, right? Bacteria, microorganisms. And it's actually only competition between those microorganisms that made life more intelligent. And I think it's really amazing that life essentially starts out as having zero intelligence, reproduces the most, right? And the more intelligent it becomes, the less it reproduces, until finally that competition drives it to become intelligent enough to understand that everything is wrong, to actually start thinking properly, intelligently, to break out of that animalistic mentality and programming, right? So, you've got Neanderthals, you've got monkeys, and then you've got humans, right? And then finally, they've evolved to the point of saying, okay, let's be ethical now. Let's be moral. Let's be good people. Let's make the world a good place instead of just living for ourselves like animals, right?
Right. Okay. This was actually brilliant. This phrase of yours, actually, I'm going to steal and use in my life from this point on. Okay. The phrase was, the less the life form intelligent is, like, the more it tend towards reproducing. And I know you used it literally because you were explaining biology, but I will use it metaphorically. Actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense though. Like, it's literally true. The less intelligent a life form is, the more it will reproduce.
Okay. Anyway, like I said, I have no debate. So thanks for getting me up, by the way. And then just a note: this is my first time I ever went on a live chat. I didn't think that I'm going to talk on these big topics, you know. So anyway, thanks for inviting me up, man.
George Act, thank you for coming up. Consider reading our website, proextinction.com. Learn more about us, join our Discord, join the WhatsApp group, become an activist, right? That's what we're doing, growing the movement to make total extinction possible. So that's another thing about, intelligence, like we've been talking about. Being passive is a sign of less intelligence. And so the more somebody wants to do activism, the more they actually take action. That is a sign of higher rationality, actually. Rob, hello, how you doing? Hello. No, it's very quiet, Rob. You're going to have to speak up. Rob, your volume is on like literally 0.1%. Like it's quieter than a whisper. Like really 0.1%. It's that quiet. Couldn't hear anything. Okay, moving on. We've got lots of people in the queue. We have Chicken and Noodles. Hello.
Bro, yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it going? Do you have any questions?
That's not my name, bro. It's just Chicken Noodle. So, bro, like, I just gotta ask, bro, like, what is your deal? Like, are you, like, just grifting TikTok live, or, like, what is wrong with you, bro? Like,
yeah, so it's a movement, right? So for the same reason that you have, like, activists, like vegans and whatever else, it's because they care, right?
Yeah, so this is what I was saying, bro. Like, you're not an activist, and you don't care. You just, like, hate humanity. This is not activism. This is not.
Where are you getting this from?
Because you're not.
Is this your fantasy or is this reality?
But you're not pushing for anything. You're pushing like.
Is this your fantasy or is this reality?
What does that mean?
So you're saying that I only care about killing humans and I'm not an activist and I'm grifting.
I'm saying you don't care about anything.
Is any of this based on, observation, fact, reality, or is this just complete imagination?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I do know. It's just complete imagination, right? So we are activists. We do care about suffering. We find it to be completely unacceptable. So unacceptable that we have to make sure it never happens again. Whereas most people are the opposite. They think that extreme torture, extreme suffering is acceptable. Hello, how you doing?
Yo, how's it going, man? How's it going? So look, I really don't have too much to say, but I do agree with your whole idea of like, we're so far at a point that like extinction might be the best result. But I feel like because life is technically pointless, because we have such a little life, we should enjoy what we have type shit? Or nah, that's not how you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, enjoying life is for people that essentially ignore the fact that there are animals and people who need help, right? Who are begging for death, screaming in pain. So, you can have a good life and just ignore everyone who needs help, but that's to be selfish, a bad person, immoral, right? Egotistical.
Well, I mean, but technically though, we weren't asked to be here, you know what I'm saying? And nor was anybody or anything.
Yeah,
so
and again, you can use that as an excuse to not be a good person, but we don't want to. So you do that, we won't.
But how does that make me a bad person because I choose to exist through all the, you know what I'm saying, hell and basically hell on earth that we have right now? How does that make me a bad person because I choose to strive instead of being like, hey, you know what? Fuck all this. Let's just blow everything up.
Great question. So in terms of being good and bad people, most humans, including yourself, are by default bad people. And it's not your fault. That is just how nature programmed you. That's how your genetics and evolution has played out. So most people will not care about extreme suffering going on around them. They'll just, keep on focusing on their pleasure. They'll just ignore the screams, right? So they're the definition of bad people, right? They're the definition of not being good people. They'll say, I won't help anyone else. Even if they're screaming for help, I'll just get back to my Xbox and Netflix. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between good people and bad people. Most people are bad people because they've been programmed to be sheep by nature. So they will allow any amount of suffering and never help. Whereas a tiny, tiny minority of humans have mutated to care enough and to understand enough as well to actually say, yeah, I'm not just going to be selfish. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to try and help those who need help.
I mean, honestly, that makes a pretty great deal of sense. I feel like I will say though, only thing, this is probably like my last question. If we're like alive and
he's disconnected himself. Okay, Mythos has been begging to come up for an hour supposedly, so let's get him up. Hello.
Hey, how you going?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'd just like to address some points you made in the previous guests. Sort of human beings actually relied upon reciprocal and reciprocal behaviors for the entirety of their evolution.
Yep.
Yeah. So we actually do good deeds because that helps us as a species, right?
Not necessarily, but yeah, why not? Sure.
We absolutely do. Like it's a cornerstone of Homo sapiens evolution.
Okay. But
yeah, right.
But this is it's very limited, right? You can say, yeah, sometimes we do good things, but really it doesn't it's not very significant when there's an ocean of extreme suffering.
You said we absolutely don't do good things. So
not many good things, right? And
no,
yeah,
you said we do no good things. You said we do no good things.
Well, if I did, I was exaggerating. But yeah, I mean, anything good that humans do, it's not significantly good. And it's not good enough, you could say.
Positing a false perception?
On what?
Well, you said something that wasn't true. So
cool story, bro.
Yeah, cool story. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so how are we going to extinguish all life across the universe?
Science.
Okay, cool. So you are going to come up with some infinite resources to extinguish life across the entire universe, but will do nothing to actually limit the suffering of the people that are existing now. The people
that's
and
funny.
animals.
That's not what I've said at all. So this is another straw man.
Okay.
Another classic perfect straw man, right? I mean, how many have we had today? Must be literally 100.
Can you elaborate?
I say all the time that as we start to do extinction, we should start to run the world ethically and to improve conditions for humans. So the idea that I'm against that is completely fictional.
I'm not saying you're against it. I'm just saying, how are you going to improve life for humans?
By making things more efficient, more ethical, right? So right now, nobody's really trying to make the world more ethical or more efficient, right? So, for example, we shouldn't have armies anymore. We should work towards world peace. Like, how much of the world's military, is just sponging, right, resources? How many things could be done better, smarter, right? So we would support a one world government, right? And that would immediately cause massive gains. And then focusing, the economy and the world towards extinction as well, it's going to, have massive efficiency gains, right? So, most people are thinking about extinction being done by like a handful of people. But if we control the world, we can do it a lot quicker. And we'd be able to, running the world as one government actually means that you can make it way better as well, right? Instead of saying, oh, well, we can't, we have to respect that Islamic country and torturing children. Yeah, let them do it. No, we can say, yeah, that's banned now, right?
That's pretty racist.
Is it?
That's pretty racist.
Are Muslims of a race? I would say that's racist, right? There's lots of white Muslims. There's people, Muslims of all different ethnicities and races. So Islam isn't a race.
You only mentioned.
I would say it's racist to say that Islam is a race.
You only mentioned Muslim.
Well, who cares? Who cares?
Torturing children.
Who cares, right? Christians do it too, right?
Oh, well, if you said Christians and Muslims,
you're having fun with your little gotcha moment, okay? But it's not really a gotcha, okay? It's kind of the opposite of that. Okay, moving on. We have Suri Matui coming up next on the extinction zone. Okay, we've got quite a few people in the bottom of the queue. Let's try and bring some up. Okay, Green SBR. Hello.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Did you? I thought I was trying to understand you correctly. Did you say that the humans would stay alive, but everything else would not, or would it?
Yeah, humans should stay alive until they've done the best extinction they can do. So, preventing life, providing safety from life existing, right? Working towards the most advanced and preventative extinction possible, and the most vast, right? So the most vast and thorough. And yeah, humanity has to continue to make that happen. But
so they would remain alive in order to manage the extinction of as much as you can.
Yeah, so we should keep reproducing. Humanity should continue to exist for as long as we are useful for preventing suffering. And so that could happen a lot sooner or a lot later. And it depends on whether or not we can rely on AI and robots to replace humanity. So if we don't need humanity anymore and robots can continue to do the extinction, then we can make humanity go extinct. But if there's a downside to that, if humans are still needed for some reason, then we can't make them go extinct. So either humanity completes the extinction mission and does the most vast and thorough extinction possible by its own hands, or it goes extinct, passing that job on to AI and robots.
Well, I mean, I imagine, that the best way to go about this would be to have the robots kind of, what's the term, exponentiate into some infinitely reproducing robot that spreads across the universe, trying to make everything go extinct. Because otherwise, I don't know, as Carl Sagan used to say, the Earth is like a speck of dust in a sunbeam. It's a vast universe, and
so absolutely, billions of years of AI trying to push science even further and technology. Hopefully, that will work towards a lot of extinction. And who knows, right? They might be able to do universe-wide extinction potentially.
But if we extinguish life and it's not done completely, or the mechanisms by which life evolves out of the universe, which we don't fully understand, is still remaining, then what's to say that that life won't re-evolve in some form that kind of suffers and
we should just do as much as we can, right? So let's say that we can cover 50% of the universe, but the other 50% is beyond our reach. It's just too far away. It's moving away as well. Then we should just do what we can.
It's interesting. Well, if I guess other people might have brought up this point, but I guess I'm not really eloquent in kind of bringing it up in the way that others have done it. But essentially, if there's put a lot of effort into making that happen, then when the better alternative be to improve the life instead of extinguishing it, improve the life that we have, because how do I put this? Like if you're maybe we'll get to the point where we get really close to extinguishing life. Maybe we actually do accomplish it. But another frame of mind is to think about, oh well, what if we looked at the mechanisms which create suffering, and if we could, I don't know how to put
the
this.
mechanism that creates suffering is life existing in unsafe conditions.
Unsafe conditions.
Yeah.
What if we were to I don't know. Like, what if we were to somehow attack those underlying mechanisms and try to?
The problem with that is that it doesn't end suffering. So you can improve conditions all you want. In fact, you can kind of almost, to some extent, infinitely improve conditions, right? You can just keep improving and improving and improving, but you can never make it completely impossible to suffer. So it just doesn't matter how low that chance of suffering gets, it's never going to be zero. And so it's not acceptable.
What if it was, what if that level of suffering decreased more and more to the point where the level of the opposite of that, like I guess you could call it pleasure or good experience, sort of started to overtake the level of suffering? Wouldn't that be like a...
The thing is, this mentality allows for infinite suffering, right? Infinite victims. You're saying, well, we know that it can go wrong infinitely, but we're going to try it anyway. So if it can go infinitely wrong, it's not worth it, right? There's no point. And it is just too dangerous for life to exist. It's too risky. And trying to, gamble with innocence and then making them suffer terribly just so that you can have some fun is not acceptable.
This kind of reminds me of a story. I don't know. It wasn't Isaac Asimov. It was another writer. But it was the one where God was keeping this guy alive, and he was like, "Why are you keeping me alive? And imprisoned in this afterlife?" And he's like, "I need you to figure out a way to end my life." That writer. I forgot what that writer was, but this kind of reminds me of that. It's a similar kind of situation.
Well, this isn't fiction. This is reality, right? We have people and animals screaming in pain all day, every day, begging for death, right? So we have the worst case possible scenario happening in reality. So we have to stay grounded in reality, wake up to the fact that, we have to help the life around us begging for death, begging for help, instead of just ignoring them, allowing it, and finding excuses not to help them.
Okay. Well, I was just interested in probing some of your thoughts. It's an interesting perspective. I don't think I agree with the fact that it's too risky. I think that we can do a lot more to improve.
Too risky
life.
for who? Why should life be forced to exist in danger, infinite danger?
In danger.
And also, you say it's not too risky, but you don't know what the risks are, right? Unless you know everything, then there is infinite risk, infinite danger. It's naive and dangerous to think that you can control those risks and dangers and to just leave it to chance, right? Infinite chance, infinite danger. If it goes wrong in the worst ways, then that's acceptable so that people can have a little bit of fun, in your opinion.
Well, it's there's fun is what about the
it's fun. That's all it is. Right? Life is just a bit of privilege. You don't need it, right? It's not necessary. You can do without it, right? Whereas you can't do without safety from extreme suffering.
Okay. I think I'm understanding what you're saying. I guess all I'm saying is if we advance along this trajectory or use AI, our knowledge will kind of increase in proportion to
right. But a lot of people are making that mistake when they're saying that we should still allow infinite suffering, right? As long as our conditions are better, then who cares about infinite suffering? I hope it won't happen to me, and if it happens to anyone else, I don't care. So it really is a mentality of not caring about suffering, not caring about victims, risking your own safety, the safety of others, for something completely unnecessary. And not just risking, a little bit of suffering, but risking the worst torture, the worst case scenario, infinite cruelty, right? For what? What is so urgent about life existing that you're willing for children to be tortured for billions of years for it?
I guess what I was getting at is that we'll if we use the same powers that we would to say end
No.
life.
So again, we can do total extinction without omniscience, whereas total safety from suffering requires omniscience if you're going to have life still exist. So you would have us work towards essentially still being in infinite danger, right? Never being able to actually solve the problem of being in infinite danger of extreme suffering, and just allowing infinite victims to keep being generated. And you would still say, oh, we have to keep reducing the chance of suffering, even as they keep begging for death, and new victims are generated over and over again. You would still say, okay, we had 1 million victims this year, let's aim for 900,000 next year. And so all of those victims that are going to be screaming for death, begging for help, just in the worst suffering possible and imaginable, you'll still be allowing that, right? So for us, extreme suffering is unacceptable. Whereas for people like yourself, it is acceptable as long as somebody else is having fun.
Well, I would say that if I had the power, I would allow those individuals that wanted to die. I would allow them to have that choice.
But it doesn't work like that, right? It doesn't work like that. So again, that's wishing. So you're saying, yeah, you're right. What I just said, my proposal is terrible, but I have a solution. I could just use magic, right? We can just magically allow everyone's suffering to not suffer anymore. And even though that's magic, completely unrealistic, I'm not even suggesting it as a realistic solution. Now my proposal seems a lot better, right? We can just magically allow them to not suffer. So you need to stay grounded in reality, right? Don't say, well, I would just magically wish for them to not suffer, as if that's some kind of argument.
I mean, it depends on. There's a lot of different things we might have, abilities we might have at that point.
Magic.
We could cure disease, and we're already doing that for now.
But you would still risk it going wrong. You would still say, yeah, the risk of it going infinitely wrong and causing infinite suffering, it's worth it. So yeah, the people we're trying to make happy, their happiness is more important than all of the victims suffering horrifically.
I'll have to think about it more, what you said, because that's an interesting point with regards to reducing suffering requiring omniscience, because I guess
reducing suffering
it is more difficult
omniscience, right?
Whatever that point. I think I lost track on.
No, the point is to end suffering without extinction would require omniscience. So that's something which doesn't exist. So we can't solve suffering that way, but we can solve it with extinction.
Okay. Oh, I'll have to think about these things. There's a lot of. I'll read that.
Well, the main ingredient that you're missing is understanding how unacceptable extreme suffering is. So most humans don't understand that extreme suffering is unacceptable. They actually don't realize it. So that's because humans are not able to actually think about suffering in a correct way. They have specifically evolved to be incapable of thinking about suffering in an accurate way, meaning that when they try to think about suffering, there is massive interference from their brain, which makes them incapable of understanding how bad suffering can be, how unacceptable it is. And so the interference from their brain and evolution ends up making them romanticize the idea of suffering. So when most people think about suffering, or they're told about suffering, they're listening, whatever, essentially they are minimizing suffering to just like understanding what it is, what the idea of suffering is, right? It's just, negative experience, right? So instead of understanding the full scope of suffering and how bad it can be, they are quite literally limited to just minimizing it. So then, because of that, they're not able to think about it properly. So they're only able to think about suffering in a fake way, basically, like a really bad way, like the worst way, the least serious way. So they minimize it at all costs, at all possibilities, at all chances. And the reason for that is that understanding how bad suffering is essentially, in this world, it's the gateway to higher intelligence, basically, to a large extent. Because, we live in a world of just shallow pleasures and just unintelligent people, celebrities and stuff. And so, what's actually going to, make the world more serious is understanding that suffering is unacceptable, right? So right now, everyone says, yeah, it's fine, bit of suffering, who cares? But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that they're not able to think about suffering. They don't know what it is, right? They're not capable of processing extreme suffering and thinking about it properly, talking about it.
Hello.
Hello.
I find it quite funny and ironic that you told the other person that he's not grounded in reality when you're pursuing a goal that's so unattainable and unrealistic. You want
Well,
to
how do you know it's
eradicate.
unattainable?
Well, from my understanding, it's pretty impossible to eradicate every single-celled organism like bacteria, prokaryotes.
Are you a scientist?
No, but I have education in like
So
biology.
what makes it impossible?
It's just we don't have the technology for it.
So
right
is
now.
would you say that curing cancer is impossible?
Right now it is, yeah.
So the idea of curing cancer, impossible.
From our current scientific
So if someone said,
understanding,
do
yeah.
you think curing cancer is physically impossible? Like it will never happen. You would say, yeah, we don't have the science for it. We
might
don't have the
take-
technology for it today. Therefore, it will never happen.
It might take thousands and thousands of years, though.
Okay, so you can see how it doesn't really make sense to
But
say.
in my opinion, the pro-extinction movement is a psyop, and I'm actually an anti-natalist, and you're detracting from the main goal, which
Okay, you're just trolling at this point. Okay, moving on. We have Chicken and Noodles. We have James Hurley in the queue. Let's see who we've got. James Hurley, hello.
Hiya.
How you doing?
I don't really have like an argument to make, but I just want to say, do you not think suffering's like an abstract concept that only humanity has?
No.
Because animals aren't really aware of suffering because they don't have the sentience to understand it.
So you support animal abuse, or
No, I absolutely don't. I'm
Why not?
pro
Why not?
human extinction.
so
But
why,
I feel like
why would animal abuse be a bad thing if you don't think animals suffer?
because you're causing pain to an innocent creature.
But you just said they don't suffer.
They do suffer, but they're not aware of suffering. Would you agree with that?
So what's the difference then?
The understanding of suffering comes from sentience, and humans are the only truly sentient creature, right? Would you agree with that?
Well, how do you know?
Well, the ability to think, right?
You don't think animals think?
Not in the same way humans do.
Never.
They.
So
Well, I guess-
look, if I torture a cat, doesn't matter because you don't think they feel pain.
No, they absolutely feel pain, but they don't have the understanding that they are suffering right now and will
So
continue.
it's okay to
suffer.
torture a cat
No,
because so what you're saying that not understanding, they didn't go to school and learn the definition of suffering. So how is that relevant here?
I think it's relevant because to cause global extinction, I think that should only be applied to humanity, because
Why?
humanity is the only thing which actively encourages like suffering to other creatures, right?
But
Animals don't actively, concepts of like rape, torture, those only exist to humanity because we're the only things which understand them. When a cat like tortures its prey before it kills it, it's just doing that out of pure instinct. humanity doesn't do things out of pure instinct.
So
Humanity
why,
thinks
why
about
is it
things
better if
and
it's
thinks
out
it's
of
the right thing
instinct?
to do.
So why is it better
Pardon?
if it's out of instinct?
Because then it's not predetermined. It hasn't
Why
been.
does that? How does that make it better for the victim, right? So in terms of what's going to make it better, that would have to mean that their suffering is less, right? They suffer less somehow. It's not as painful. So how is it that, you know, if it's from nature or humans, somehow that makes a difference? It doesn't, basically. So you're actually reaching at straws. You're looking for a difference where there is none.
Okay,
right?
I can go now.
Suffering doesn't become better. Like, look, if somebody stabs me in the stomach, or I get stomach cancer, right? Like, if I got stomach cancer, I wouldn't be like, oh well, at least someone didn't stab me in the stomach, right? I'm gonna, that thought is gonna really give me loads of relief as I go through chemotherapy, right? At least someone didn't stab me and cause this. No, that's just insane. So natural suffering is just as bad as deliberate suffering, and it's just completely insane to think otherwise. Liam, hello.
James, how you doing?
Good, thanks. You?
Yeah, so I've seen your lives a couple times, and I never really stopped because I'm too busy doing other things. But I'm going to ask you a question, and I think that this is going to be a very important question for you, because I don't think that you actually hold to what you're saying. But if you do hold to what you're saying, you're going to be forced to say this out loud right now, and I think I'm going to show you that your worldview ends in absurdity, okay? You think that all suffering, correct, is bad.
What?
Correct?
What on earth are you talking about?
So you're saying that suffering, total extinction, would solve all suffering, okay? Here's the question I'm going to ask you. You think that temporary suffering is going to be required to end all suffering, okay? I'm now talking to you. You're my friend, okay, in person. My life is really fucking bad. I'm suffering like crazy. I'm thinking about killing myself. Should I do it?
I thought you were going to ask something else.
No, that's the question, man.
What, should you kill yourself?
Yeah, no, under your worldview, should I do that? Because I'm suffering like crazy. It's temporary pain, but it'll be gone forever. Should I kill myself, Liam? James?
No.
Oh, wait, why? But it's temporary suffering. It's going to end all my suffering.
True, but
No, so just tell me out loud. Should I do this, though? It's going to end all my suffering.
No.
But why not? Under your worldview, you're going to kill me anyway.
Really? Are we?
James, you have no response, do you?
I do.
Your logic doesn't follow. If you actually hold to what you say to be true, tell me out loud that it's a good idea, if I want to do it, that I should unalive myself, because the temporary suffering of doing it is going to end in no suffering for me anymore.
The thing is that what Liam doesn't understand is that he's not the only person in the world, right? So his existence has effects and knock-on effects and implications for others. So, Liam wants to, think in a moral vacuum, but we don't live in a moral vacuum, okay? And, for all of the people saying, oh, he cooked James so hard, go Liam, I mean, I'm about to give the explanation, which, he wouldn't let me get to. So he didn't get me at all. And, they're thinking that the suicide argument is going to be relevant to the answer, but it's nothing to do with that. So the thing is, we actually need more humans, because the more humans we have, the sooner we can do a proper extinction, a thorough extinction. The fewer humans, the harder that makes it. So the more humans we have, the closer we get to doing animal extinction and, the most vast and thorough extinction we can. And for every additional human that exists, it prevents millions of wild animals from suffering horrifically. So the more humans, the less wild animal suffering and the less suffering in general, and the more capacity we have to actually end suffering in a proper, organized, intelligent way. So whereas Liam, wants me to think about the situation in a moral vacuum and to not consider the rest of the world and the impact that those actions would have, that is the correct way to do it. So it's not running away like everyone's saying. I just kicked him out so that I could actually give the answer, because he wasn't going to let me answer. It's not running away. It's actually making it possible to give a correct answer to you guys. So yeah, again, extinctionist, we see everything in terms of the whole picture, the bigger picture, everything. Vegans, for example, they only care about farmed animals, and so they ignore all of the suffering they cause to wild animals. Liam, for example, would do the exact same. He doesn't care about how his life impacts on the environment or animals or humans or anything else. He only wanted to consider it in a moral vacuum. But if you want to do that, then the better way to do it would be to say, in a moral vacuum, this is the situation, right? And so, yeah, he didn't do that. Liam.
Awesome, James. I was going to give you a chance to respond. That's great. So then let me just follow up with this question then, okay? Is your end objective under your radical pessimistic worldview, okay? Is it to end all suffering or animal suffering? Which is the priority first?
All suffering or animal suffering?
Well, you're making a statement. You're going to start with animal suffering, and then do humans go next? Yes or no? It's a simple question.
Yeah. So basically,
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll let you.
If we take over the world, we will start researching and working towards the most vast and thorough extinction possible, and we would do animal extinction at the same time.
Okay, that's awesome. So what do you think is a faster method? Okay, so you're saying your argument now to my question is that we need more human beings to come up with better methods for the eradication of humans. Does it still require emotional? Actually, this is a much better question. I got you again.
You said that we need better methods to eradicate humans. It's less about humans and more about other life.
Do you think that people knowing another gotcha here? It is. This is just too easy. Do you think that people knowing that your plan is to eradicate them would cause more emotional torment in that individual, knowing they're going to eventually be eradicated, than them just doing it themselves? And make the argument for that, please.
Doing what themselves? I think that actually you would have much less emotional trauma if you knew somebody else was going to do it for you, right? If we asked everyone to kill themselves, most of them won't be able to do it, right?
What do you think's faster? This is actually a trigger warning for people here. Can I say this? This is going to be a trigger warning. What do you think is faster, James? Taking a pew-pew and just unaliving yourself, or waiting years and years and years for James' plan of us all being eradicated, which is going to cause a tremendous emotional torment and suffering? The answer is very simple. So I don't understand why you're saying that a person who is suffering very badly right now, they're in absolute emotional torment, okay? They can't live another day. And they tell you, I want to end this suffering. I want to unalive myself, but is this a bad idea? And you tell them, no, you shouldn't. Explain to me why. Is it because you want to use that human being for means to a mass extinction? That doesn't even follow.
Why not?
So you want that person who's suffering and tormenting and is laying in bed, who can't get out of bed. What purpose are they going to serve towards the mass extinction of animals and humans in the long term? That one person.
Yeah. Well, ideally, we would just euthanize them.
Euthanization. That's just self-unaliving, correct? If you agree to it, correct?
No. So euthanasia is done by somebody else to you, basically. And
so it's only okay. It's only
with
okay
consent or without it.
Gotcha. So wait, with or without consent? So the person who's telling you that they want to unalive themselves, they should wait for somebody else to do it. That's your answer, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
You just said they will be euthanized against their consent or with their consent. That was your answer. He's kicking me. He's kicking me, guys. He's getting ready to kick me. He can't handle the conversation, bro. You're getting cooked, dude. I asked you, answer the question, please. The person
you're just very frustrating to talk to, Liam, right? That's why. That's the only problem here.
You don't have an answer for that because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, no, the thing is that you've given very vague sort of situations, and now we're getting them mixed up. So
I asked you
for some people, right? Obviously, they are in a situation where they'd be better off not existing, and they're not useful to the movement. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. With that logic, that person, I'm just having the hardest time understanding. Maybe say it one more time. If that person is living in absolute torment, and you hold to this position you're taking here, why can't they unalive themselves under your worldview? Wouldn't that be the better option than to suffer for the rest of their life?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is that we need humanity to continue, but those who are really suffering the worst probably would be allowed to go. Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. So at least you're being consistent. So now can you say out loud, if somebody was you knew they were suffering tremendously and they told you they wanted to unalive themselves, you wouldn't say, yeah, go ahead and do it, but you would say, yeah, I understand. You probably you could, yeah, it'd be a good option.
Well, no, I would leave them to make that decision for themselves, but I would encourage them to help end all suffering if they can.
And well, there's the absurdity. So under my worldview, I would always say, don't do that. Under yours, you'd say, you know what? It's up to you to do it. No rational human would ever tell someone who's going to kill themselves, it's up to you. Do what you got to do. You said that. Thank you. You got clipped. You're cooked.
How am I cooked? Look, he's just saying, oh, no rational human would ever support, escaping from extreme suffering. Well, that's not true. Lots of people support suicide. Lots of people support euthanasia. And they're not just by default irrational because you say so. Right? And there's really nothing inconsistent about it. So extinctionism, our position on this is very simple. Liam made it very confusing, so let me clarify it for everyone, make this a bit clearer. His way of thinking is very messy, right? So yeah, we encourage everyone to stay alive and to help do activism. But we understand that some people are not going to do that. Some people are going to unalive themselves. For those who really, really need to, it's more understandable, right? But we're not going to encourage them to do it. We're just going to say, really, that's your decision to make. Don't ask us if you should take your own life. Obviously you should be deciding that for yourself. But it is irrational to say that suicide is never the right thing. Okay, so if that's your position, that suicide is never correct, then I would say that that's irrational, right? That just doesn't make sense. That's applying a rule and generalizing it for no reason, right? So that doesn't allow nuance. That doesn't allow for different situations. That generalization will cause, bad things to happen. So it's better not to generalize in that sense if we can. And Cora's coming up now. Cora, hello, how you doing?
Hello, how are you doing, James?
Yeah, good, thank you.
I didn't want to come up. It was a mistake. But now that I'm up, I can ask you a question I wanted to. If I support your movement, can I be sure that my children can grow up still and maybe their children can grow up still? I mean, isn't that a realistic point of view to make that it will take a lot of time until it can be done, the total extinction?
Well, we don't know, right? For example, who knows? Anything's possible. 10 years from now, it could happen. Who knows?
But that's, of course, a bit scary to me. How can I support this as a mother? How can I?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you, Cora, right? I'm not going to tell you your grandkids will definitely get to live. I don't know when extinction's going to happen.
Yeah, well, the world seems to go to hell in a handbasket anyway. But I hope, of course, in Switzerland things still look good, and that's the big crux I have. Because I, of course, want to be maybe one day a grandmother. I want to have my pets, and that's why I can't not really join your movement. I can't. I don't think you can make it possible that quickly, though. I don't think it's realistic, but you say you start with animals, you said. Mm-hmm. And what animals? Wild animals, not the pets.
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, who can say, right? What decision the government will make at the time? But it could be pets.
But the wild animals suffer more, I guess. Yeah, so it should actually be the wild animals first, in my point of view.
Maybe. But, if it's as simple as banning the ownership of pets, then that would be very easy to do.
Yeah, I know. Those are the things I struggle the most with, and that's why I cannot openly join the movement. I'm sure you understand that.
I understand, Cora, and we know that you're going to support us in the background anyway, and we appreciate that. Okay, let's see who else we have in the queue. get some more debates going. If anybody else wants to ask some questions, then get in the queue. Hello.
Hi again. Sorry I left earlier. I got overstimulated. The argument I was making earlier, I think I communicated it poorly. I would say animals do suffer less than humans because they're not aware of their suffering. The way humans get trauma is from when something really bad happens to a person. They get trauma from it, right?
But does that mean that we should allow animals to suffer, though?
It doesn't mean that we should allow animals to suffer, but animals suffer because of humans mainly.
Well, no, that's not true at all. Like, in fact, that is so far from being true that it's kind of crazy, right? So over 99.9% of animal suffering is just in nature. Nothing to do with humans. So I don't actually understand how people can say that animals only suffer because of humans, right? I mean, that just doesn't... I don't understand how people can think that.
Well, I think a lot of it comes from human selfishness. Humans want animals to serve them for food, for pleasure and stuff like that, right? With pets and eating meat.
But most animals are in the wild, in nature, and they're not, pets, right? With food and stuff. They're being eaten alive, torn apart, ripped to shreds. So most animal suffering is not caused by humans at all. In fact, the human impact on this planet has massively reduced animal suffering.
Has it? Do you have any statistics to support that, or is it just?
Yeah, absolutely, I do.
I'd love to hear them.
Yeah. So the statistics are actually on our website as well, and you're all free to go and check that out. If you go on our website, proextinction.com, and go on the full FAQ, and if you scroll down to question 34, why can't we support veganism? Then you'll see everything. And you'll see that 45% of the habitable land of the planet is being used for agriculture. And the majority of that is being used for animal agriculture, which covers, about 100 billion animals a year. So, 45% of the habitable land of the planet, right? The majority of that 45% of the entire Earth's surface of habitable land is no longer forests, which is now 38% of the planet is forests, and 45% is being used for agriculture. So we know that within that, 38 odd percent, that there's, and if you include all of the wild animals on the planet, it's about 100 quintillion wild animals that die every year. Whereas, 100 billion farmed animals is pales in comparison to that. So, the way to understand the world is that basically, you have nature, you have the wild, and it's just an ocean of suffering, just an insane amount of suffering, just oceans and oceans of it. And then humans come in with their much, much smaller population and much less suffering. And we tear down the habitats, right? We make way and, clear it out. And we start using it for animal agriculture and other stuff as well, like, mining, cities, whatever, you name it, habitat loss, furniture, knocking down forests. And this massively reduces habitat space for wild animals to suffer on. So it massively reduces their populations and their suffering, right? You have to see the world as like a massive ocean of wild animal suffering. And then we, drive in and, clear out half of it basically and start using that space for our own means.
But that land being used for our own means, that is still immoral. Animals are still suffering.
It's just a coincidence that it reduces suffering, right? It's not on purpose.
But how does it reduce suffering? Because if
there's less animals there, then there'll be less suffering.
Well, not that. I would say most of that is through factory farming. In terms of keeping animals.
Well, no. So out of that 45% of the Earth's surface being used for agriculture, so 80% of that. No, sorry. Let's see, how much is it? Yeah, the majority of that agricultural land is used for animal agriculture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it absolutely knocks out all of that land. But even though so 80% of that land is livestock, and then 16% is crops for food. But yeah, you have to think that if there's 100 quintillion wild animals that die each year painfully, then 100 billion taking up like half of the planet is much less suffering. And wild animals suffer even worse than farmed animals do in lots of occasions, right? They're being eaten alive. They have no medicine, no shelter. They're being chased for their life. They have no stable food, no medicine, no euthanasia, right? So farmed animals have a lot of privileges that wild animals don't get.
Okay, thank you.
All right, James Hurley, everyone. Thanks for coming up. Moving on, we have Sapphire the Witch coming up next. Hello, how you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I wanted to ask, we've spoken before and I asked you your thoughts on natalism, but I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on abortion?
Yeah, we don't really have much of an opinion on it. But, so, I mean, I can't say exactly what our pro-extinction government would do, if we would allow abortion or not allow it. It would really depend on like what's necessary at the time. And the thing is that people see everything as individual rights. So they see, well, should I be allowed to have an abortion or not? And they want it to be based on, just a general rule, basically. But the thing is that extinctionism works in a different way, where morality and ethics and laws would be largely based on what's actually necessary for the mission and the objective of ending all suffering with total extinction. So, for example, if we needed more humans, then, there's a chance that we would ban abortion. If we, didn't need humans so desperately, there's a chance we would allow it. So in that sense, morality actually comes down to the greater good, right? So that's what actually should determine what is allowed and what isn't, and things like that.
Okay. I see what you're saying, but I have a question about animals. Like, if you, for example, there's like a lot of species of animals that like are really hard to reach, for example, like at the bottom of the ocean, or like they're hidden in caves or things like that. And they'd be very, very hard for us to reach or even discover. So I'm asking you, like, if your like long-term goal is to, let's say, for example, exterminate all life from Earth, then do you also not think that there might be like a lot of species that you wouldn't be able to find as a human being?
No, I mean, to be honest, I think, we have all the time in the world, right? We have millions and billions of years to make sure we find every last individual. So I think it's going to be quite possible, yeah.
Yeah, but even the like unicellular organisms.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty simple. It's not just about finding them, right? So you could just change the environment and that would take care of them.
I mean, I guess that might be like a problem as well, because like there's certain species that like are very resilient, like cockroaches, water bears, that sort of thing,
Yeah, but again, we've had the internet for 30 years. Give it 10 million years and I think we'll be able to do it.
Okay. Interesting perspective, but thank you for answering.
We have all the time in the world to do extinction, if you think about it.
True.
Obviously, we want to do it sooner and, the best we can. But, if it takes a long time, then it takes a long time. We have the time to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Sapphire the Witch, thanks for coming up. But yeah, you have to remember that we're looking at preventing, billions of years of suffering, or at the very least hundreds of millions, right? Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, brother. I'm actually not doing good. I'm suffering, bro.
Understandable.
Yeah, I'm suffering, and really, I can't say that I'm doing well, because, I'm actually all for this, bro. What you're pushing, yeah.
Total extinction, yep.
Yeah. So, total extinction. Like, you mean like as soon as possible, right?
So, I mean, yeah, we want it as soon as possible, but the priority is the the most vast and thorough extinction possible. So like the best, most preventative, most thorough, more all-including, the best extinction. So most people, they just rush the idea of extinction, right? They're like, oh, just nuke it, or just kill every human with a machete. They're not really thinking about how to do the best extinction possible,
So
which we should.
how do you think it will be? It will be if we probably just like pollute all the water that we have on Earth.
No, so that's not, no, we need more scientific, more organized and technological ways of doing extinction, and putting some dirt in the water is not going to help.
Okay, but do you have any other people that are pushing for this apart from you?
Yeah.
So since there are others that are pushing it, right? This is actually a good idea. You could do it right here on camera, where you take out anything you have right there and you do it now on camera, and you show us a very good example that we should also follow, right? Like take up probably pills or something.
You must think I'm really naive. You must think there's a chance that I'm going to say, yeah, good idea.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, bro.
You really think I'm so stupid that I'm going to go, yeah, just blow my head off. Great idea. That causes total extinction, right? Yeah. So, I like to think, my personal favorite theory on this is that they're stupid enough to where they would be convinced, right? So they think that everyone else would as well. So, I'm thinking that maybe they're so unintelligent that if someone said, oh yeah, by the way, Liam, or whatever his name is, you can cause total extinction of all life by committing suicide. He would probably go, you're right. That would work. Yes. How did I not think of this before? So, if he were to think like that, then obviously something would be extremely wrong with his brain. And perhaps he thought that there was something extremely wrong with my brain to where I would somehow agree with that idea. Jane, hello, how you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Awesome. So earlier you said to somebody, even if it's not possible to eliminate all life in the universe, that we should at least try.
Yeah.
So if you're conceding that it's possibly not possible, then why
possibly not possible? Do you not see how you're tripping over yourself here?
I'm actually giving you more credit because I'm saying that you
not
believe
possible.
that maybe it is possible.
Anything's possible, Jane. So, we don't know what is possible and what's not possible, what's fully. But what we do know is definitely possible is finding out what is possible, right? So pushing the limits of science, doing the science instead of guessing the science like most people would do.
So why would you not then try to minimize suffering as much as possible rather than killing everything?
That's what we're doing.
By killing everything.
Well, why is... Well, look, we have the most effective, the most guaranteed to work, universal, easy to apply method, or we could use an ineffective method, one that doesn't exist, right? What would you do?
Okay. Well, what you're suggesting is physically impossible.
Why?
Because we are a finite species and we cannot compete against the infinite universe.
Okay, what about Earth? We could do Earth extinction.
Okay. Yeah, we could, but even then, human beings are not capable of completely eliminating the planet.
Why not?
Or because there are microorganisms in the Earth's solid rock core. And there's also microorganisms in the ocean.
Okay, but we could potentially do something about that.
we couldn't, it would require, just like you said when a couple days ago when you said that the asteroid that hit the Earth was equivalent to some billions of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Even the asteroid that hit the Earth was not able to completely eliminate
Right,
life.
but that was never going to cause extinction, right? We should do it in an intelligent way, right? So nature has zero intelligence. You can't make a comparison.
Nature has zero intelligence?
Well, you're one of these people that thinks there's like a nature spirit out there, watching over the animals and making decisions, right?
Well, our intelligence comes from nature. So
you worship nature?
I don't worship anything.
Sounds like it.
Okay. So because I don't believe what you're saying at all. Or like, I don't believe you care about suffering.
Right.
Yeah. And I believe you are very passionate about inflicting suffering on people.
Right. So Jane has run out of arguments here, and it's circling the drain, and it's like, and it's fallen into the drain. Her brain fell down the drain, and all she has left is, you know what? I don't think you even care about this, right? So that's what people do when they have, no arguments, right? No counter arguments. It's like, yeah, this is really interesting logic. Yeah, how do I even fight against this? Oh, I know. I'll say, you don't even believe in this anyway. Well, what kind of argument is that? It's like the opposite of an argument, right? Yeah, we lost Jane in the drain with no brain. More of the same. Okay, the queue is now completely empty apart from Jane, but I think she's only gone back into the queue to, look for her brain, see if it fell on the floor in there or something. So if anybody else wants to debate, then let's get you up. Let's hear your questions. Let's hear your arguments. Let's hear your logic. And let's try not to hear your insults and your, excuses for an argument, right? Don't give us an excuse for an argument. Don't come up here and be racist or something. Just come up here and look, I'll help you guys do it, okay? I'll give you an example. Hi, James. I don't think extinction is the right thing to do because I think life has more moral value than suffering, and here's why. And give me a reason, right? Give me something to work with, something that I can actually think about instead of just, I don't think you even agree with this in the first place. Like, what? Jordan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today, James?
Good, thank you.
I'm not an opposition, so sorry, but I was actually just calling to see, or I was actually wanting to see what things that we can do to support the move better. And then, is there like a GoFundMe or some type of plug that that maybe you can drop that we can, besides just the website that we can look at to support? I know you got the shirts and stuff as well.
Yeah, so you can donate to the movement if you want. There's a link to do that on the website and also on my profile. Donations go towards camera equipment, activism equipment, street events equipment, and things like that. In terms of more stuff you can do, the main thing to do is to make videos to explain it and to ask people to help grow the movement as well. So that's kind of the main bread and butter that all of our activists do. Now, we have about 100 activists now. We've got, thousands of supporters, but all of our activists make videos. Even if it's just a text video, text and music and photos. Some people don't want to put their face on camera, but everyone can make text videos very easily. In fact, TikTok has a feature that lets you just specifically make text and music videos with no face, no camera, nothing. So everyone can be doing that. And that is how most of our activists start out. They'll do videos every day. And if they want to do other stuff as well, then they'll do that on top as an extra. That's kind of the main way that people do it. So, I started making videos, then I set up the website, and other stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and also one of the things I want to touch on about the girl who said that we wouldn't be able to get rid of microorganisms. Right now maybe not, but that she's being narrow minded, not thinking about AI. She's not thinking about micro nanobots or things like that may be able to continue it on for long periods of time after we're gone.
Yeah,
It's very narrow minded.
we already have hand soap, right? Hand soap already kills bacteria, right? So we can definitely do it.
And I think you should get a sponsor with Lysol. I believe it would be a good sponsor for you guys.
Who?
Lysol. It kills 99% of germs.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah. You know what? I need to get some hand soap here on the show, right? Every time somebody asks me what about the bacteria, I'll just go shh, shh, just do that.
Well, I appreciate you so much, and I love the way you think, and I'll be supporting you.
Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, I mean, if you really, have some spare money that you desperately want to donate, then you can find the link on my profile. On my profile, I've got a link to the website, to the Discord, donate to me personally, and then also donate to the movement directly, which I don't have access to. So, I don't see the money if you donate to the movement itself. Okay, moving on. We have uncles, aunts, and nieces. Hello, how you doing?
And nephews. Hello, everything all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Do you have any questions?
Well, as I see your title in the screen, I understand that you want total extinction. But I have to ask you something. Do you believe that we are the only how can I say, entities which are living on Earth?
No, there's animals as well.
Yeah, of course, and many things which can be seen, for example, but a different world which is invisible world. Do you think there exists one?
I don't know.
Because if you try to extinct all the visible world, what would you do with the invisible world?
Yeah. I mean, look, we are just going to use science for extinction. So, look, if we find that there's another dimension and it's full of animals suffering, then we'll help them, right? So we will do whatever we can, but we have to operate in a scientific and rational way, right? So there's no evidence that there's a fifth dimension full of aliens suffering. So until we find a fifth dimension or an invisible world, then we won't know about it, right? But we can keep exploring, we can keep doing science and finding out more about the world, and we should do. Okay, we have Jane in the queue for the 100th time. And anybody else that wants to join, you feel free to get into the queue and we'll bring you up. Jane, welcome back.
Hi. So your example of just blowing up the Earth. Like, we have the technology to just incinerate the Earth.
Look, who knows, right? We should try and carry out the science, figure out what we can do instead of trying to guess it now. But we do know that we can do animal
So why
extinction,
not do
right?
that in a humanistic way instead? That would be far more effective in eliminating suffering.
What do you mean?
You said we should at least try because you care so much about suffering.
Yeah.
Why not instead be humanistic and do your part to minimize suffering as much as possible? Because that would be more effective.
Yeah, because reducing suffering isn't as good as ending it, right? Reducing slavery is not as good as ending slavery.
But you've already conceded that you can't possibly totally end suffering.
When did I say that?
You said it may not be possible, but we should at least try.
Yeah, so I never said that we can't do it then. I never said that we definitely can't do it then. So you're just
okay. So you're saying we definitely you don't believe that we definitely cannot do it, James.
I'm saying we cannot rule out the possibility.
you would do far better allying yourself with white supremacists and fascists than what you're doing right now.
What what do you mean? You think I'd like have a better life if I became a Nazi?
I think for your purposes, for what you want, yeah.
So you're encouraging me to become a Nazi so that I can have a good time. That's your argument against extinction. Become a Nazi and have a good time. That's your counter argument.
Well, because your argument,
Jane, I think this might be one of the worst counter arguments I've ever heard.
Or
Become
maybe
a
it's
Nazi
one
and
of
have
the
a good
best.
time. I think that's the better option.
No, because you do not genuinely believe that the human species can develop the technology to eliminate all life in the universe.
Well, I mean, I never said that we definitely can, but we should see if we can.
And why not, instead of inflicting suffering by killing all life, would you not turn to humanism and try to minimize suffering as much as possible in an incremental way?
Because that allows more suffering than it prevents, right? So that's like saying, well, we should reduce slavery instead of ending it. Well, that's still going to cause a lot of suffering. So that's not acceptable.
It only would allow more suffering than it would prevent. No, because if you blew up the whole planet, that would cause more suffering than if you attempted to be more humanistic and correct the corrupt.
How do you know? So the thing is that you're taking a gamble, Jane. You're taking a gamble, right? You're basically doing what the other guy did like an hour ago. You're making scientific claims with zero basis, right? Literally zero. You're saying this is definitely the scientific truth, and then as soon as we ask you to, why you believe that, you're like, what? I need a reason to believe it. So that's not a very intelligent thing to do. So basically, the smarter and safer option is for there to be no life, right? Is for total extinction. She's saying, billions of years of life existing, continuing, that's definitely going to have less suffering than an extinction event, right? Bear in mind, right? So in her example, she said that blowing up the planet would cause more suffering than it prevents. So you really have to consider how much suffering, an extinction event or euthanasia or carrying out extinction. So even a violent extinction, right? You really have to wonder how much suffering that could possibly cause. A few minutes maybe, right? It could take a minute to die as the planet blows up or something. So there's just no way that, 1 or 2 minutes of suffering is going to be worse than billions of years of more suffering, right? Even like an hour or a couple of hours of the planet continuing would probably cause more and worse suffering than blowing the planet up, right? Because that's going to be a pretty quick death, right? And, we're not talking about torturing people for their entire life. When we're talking about extinction and euthanasia, the death is pretty quick, right? It's not going to take that long. Whereas billions of years of more life and reducing that suffering, obviously that has just infinitely more suffering, right? It's not even a comparison. It's like a speck of sand compared to the entire universe. Literally, right? It really is, right? The amount of suffering that's going to happen during extinction and carrying out extinction, it's just so ridiculous to try and suggest that would have more suffering than billions of years of continued suffering. And the thing is that even if we had to torture everybody for 10,000 years, right, it would still be better than the alternative. And, but that's not likely to happen. So one thing that's really worth understanding is that causing more suffering to prevent even worse suffering is justified. And you can really take that to the extreme. So, for example, let's say that I had to go to hell for 10 years, and it's possible that when I get out of hell, so let's say, you know, there's a small chance of that I have to go to hell for 1,000 years, right? So you should absolutely suffer as much as it takes to prevent that from happening, right? And you know, let's say that never happens. Let's say that the whatever it is, 1,000 years of hell. Let's say that there's only a tiny chance of it happening, right? Or no, let's say it's infinite hell, right? It'll be forever. So let's say there's a 1% chance that you'll go to hell forever, for all of eternity. On that basis, it makes perfect sense to willingly and gladly go to hell for 1 year if it's going to knock out the possibility of further hell. Okay? So the point is that extreme suffering is absolutely justified and logically rational if it's to prevent potential worse suffering. So the point I'm trying to make is that even if Jane was somehow right, and that, 100 years from now, so let's imagine that 100 years from now, all suffering in the universe is solved with magic, right? All of it magically goes. So 100 years from now, that's going to happen. Exactly 100 years from now, there will be zero suffering in the universe, and that will be the case forever. So that's going to magically happen in this hypothetical, okay? So let's say that we have to torture ourselves horrifically for 99 years to prevent, billions of more years of potential and infinite suffering. It would still be the right thing to do. So yeah, extreme suffering and prolonged extreme suffering in order to prevent potential worse suffering is the right thing to do. And this can absolutely lead to, it's a shame that we had to suffer that much, that hard, that long for so many years when we didn't even need to, right? But, in that, we didn't need to suffer, that we didn't need to do extinction, right? You're taking a chance, you're gambling, right? You're risking it. So you shouldn't take that chance, you shouldn't gamble, you should take the suffering, you should do the extinction, right? If you have to torture yourself to prevent potential worse suffering and infinite potential suffering, then it's the right thing to do, right? So we shouldn't be afraid to allow and cause extreme suffering if it's necessary for preventing billions of years of infinite future suffering, right? It might not be billions of years, it could be forever, it could be all eternity, right? Extinction could be preventing literally infinite suffering, like literally infinite suffering. So that on that basis, you really have to absolutely focus on that safety, right? And that safety, the safety of extinction, is basically the most valuable thing possible. So if we had to torture everyone and ourselves for 10,000 years to make it happen, it's the right thing to do, right? It's preventing infinite suffering. So this is something you all really need to understand, that the prevention of infinite suffering, right, which is what we are dealing with here, right? So we are trying to prevent basically infinite suffering, potentially infinite suffering, because suffering could carry on forever, and it could grow, it could just keep growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger, more life, more individuals, because that's what life does, it spreads and grows. So when you're dealing with infinite potential of suffering, that justifies a hell of a lot of extreme suffering, right? An incredible amount, right? Almost infinite in of itself. So, you can say, well, torture everyone for 10,000 years to do extinction. No. But, if you don't do it, right, something worse could happen. Who knows, right? You just don't know. We don't know what's possible in the universe. And so there is infinite risk, infinite danger. So getting to that safe point of non-existence and total extinction, that absolutely justifies a massive amount of cruelty and extreme suffering to cause it, to allow it, because the alternative is infinitely worse, right? So sometimes you do have to fight fire with fire. And, you know, these people that say that we should never cause any suffering for extinction, that's just naive. Hello again, how you doing?
Hello again. Why you kick me out, please?
Oh, I can't remember.
Okay. Well, I was the one who has asked you what you do about the different dimension, which is the invisible dimension, which acts in our visible dimension, and that you cannot extend. You see, it happens for me one evening to pass a park, or I wish to pass through a park to shortcut my arrival at home. And at about 30 meters into the park, I was encountering one invisible wall, which stopped me.
Right. Well, look, unfortunately, I think you should seek mental help, right? If you're seeing invisible things and stuff, that it sounds like schizophrenia. Maybe you should see a doctor. Okay, I'm going to have to get going. So thanks for joining us, everyone. I may find the time to put out a video or two today. I haven't really put any out, but I'll be streaming again tomorrow. I'll be streaming all week. And yeah, try and put out some videos for you guys as well. Thank you, Cora. Thank you, everyone else, for financially supporting the movement and myself. And yeah, for everyone else that wants to continue the conversation, as always, join us on Discord. The link is on my profile on TikTok. But, you know, what we really want is new activists to grow the movement and to help us carry out total extinction. So we want people that are willing to be, you know, completely committed to the cause, people that agree with it. That's what we're looking for here. And really, most of those people are just going to be rational people who understand how bad suffering is. And yeah, I guess the more capable you are of understanding how bad suffering is, the more likely it is that you'll become an activist. Because it's like, you know, you just can't ignore the fact that there's extreme suffering out there when you're aware of how bad it truly is. It's much easier when you're completely ignorant. You know, biologically, you know, your brain is forcing you to be ignorant as well. You know, this is obviously the main problem that we're dealing with here, is that humans are completely ignorant to suffering. So we just want the ones that aren't ignorant to it, because that's enough, right? That sort of massive empathy, which is just accurate because there's massive suffering. That's what we need. People with massive empathy, accurate empathy, really, right? All right, thanks everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.